This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
It is Wednesday, 21st August, 2024. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. This is news to 6 a.m. on News Power Digital. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley is doubling down on his decision to place the steel pan on Trinidad and Tobago's coat of arms, and is strongly condemning dissenting voices who said such a move would alienate citizens of East Indian descent. He also dismissed a suggestion by historian Dr. Jerome Tiluxing that the TASA should be included to reflect this country's ethnic diversity, saying, anyone saying that is either wicked, ignorant, or doesn't know the history of the country. Dr. Rowley was speaking at the PNM's 10th Annual Constituency Conference for the constituency of La Hokata Talparo at the HCC Village Car Park in La Hokata last evening. Following his announcement that Christopher Columbus's 3 ships will be replaced by the steel pan, leader of the opposition, Kamla Prasad Bisesa, urged caution, saying it could ignite racial tensions. The Prime Minister said, go to Facebook and there's endless race talk. Go in the papers and you will see them say steel pan is African. So let me educate you, Dr. Rowley said. He also listed several prominent figures of the Pan fraternity of East Indian descent, including Bobby Muhammad and Jit Samaru. Dr. Rowley said it would not be proper to put an instrument such as the TASA on the coat of arms, as it is not indigenous to Trinidad and Tobago, and said he was shocked that this suggestion would come from an intellectual. The Caribbean Examination Council has reported 64% of students, or 2 out of every 3 pupils, who wrote CSEC mathematics in June and May, failed the exam. This according to figures released by the region's CXC board on August 20th. The CXC held a ceremony in Dominica to officially launch the results of CSEC and CAPE, which pupils began to access online immediately thereafter. CXC Director of Operations, Dr. Nicole Manning, said the pass rate for CSEC's math across the Caribbean was just 36% of students. She indicated the pass rate had been 43% last year, up from 37% in 2022 and 34% in 2021, the latter likely due to the fallout from the pandemic and homeschooling. Despite noting a slight rise in the percentage getting grade 1, up from 8 to 9% of pupils over last year, she said overall, we have to get out of this rut. The next performing subject area in CSEC was Spanish, which was passed by only 50% of students. Meanwhile, CXC Director Dr. Nicole Manning also revealed a notable rise in cheating in this year's CSEC exam as the organization launched the release of the results. This year, 54 cases of cheating were discovered compared to 36 pupils last cycle. The Ministry of Education says it will continue to work closely with the Teaching Service Commission to have all vacancies in government primary schools filled before the beginning of Term 2 of 2024-2025 academic year. At present, there exist 99 teachers, primary 1, vacancies at 125 government primary schools out of a total of 452 primary schools, of which 42 vacancies require a teacher to be recruited and 57 are requests for transfers. Deputy PS Wilson Henry Jr. confirmed the ministry has started to address the situation. A probe is taking place into an incident which occurred on the MV Cabo Star on Tuesday. The management of the Trinidad and Tobago Inter-Island Transportation Company Limited says the public will be advised upon completion of the investigation and the resumption of service of the craft. It said given the nature of the incident, service on Tuesday was cancelled. It advised all truckers and other port users of the MV Cabo Star the incident occurred on the vessel Tuesday morning. The Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries revealed the overturned barge that has been grounded on February 7, 2024, off the coast of Cove Tobago was successfully refloated at 11:54 p.m. on August 19th this year. The refloat operations commenced on Monday afternoon at 5:50 p.m. and were completed by 11:54. Operations were conducted under the supervision of a team from the internationally recognized salvage company, TNT Salvage Incorporated. The team comprised the senior salvage master, naval architect, a contingent of skilled salvors, and the support of technical staff at the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries. The Gulfstream is currently stationed approximately 3 miles away from its original resting place and is now a float holding station in water 60 meters deep off the coast of Cove Tobago and secured by supporting tugs. There are reports that a father and a 5-year-old daughter were shot and killed in Moruga last night. Initial reports indicate that Enrico Andy Lorenzo Guerra, 34, and his 5-year-old daughter Anika were shot at the corner mart, which he operated. He died at the scene while his daughter was taken to the Princestown Health Facility, where she later succumbed to her injuries. We'll have more as information comes to hand. In news of the region, Guyanese music icon Dave Martin has died. He was 90 years old. Martin's death was announced this week by his wife Annette Arjun Martin on social media. He's best known for his nation-building song, Not a Blade of Grass, which encouraged Guyanese to stand against threats to their country's control of disputed territory. And finally, Prime Minister Gaston Brown issues a stern call for action against rising crime in Antigua and Barbuda. Mr. Brown emphasized a zero-tolerance approach during a high-level meeting with national security personnel and law enforcement agencies on the islands. In his address, Prime Minister Brown stressed the urgency of that situation. And that is news to 6 a.m. right here on News Power Digital. We'll have major news coming your way at 7 a.m. Good morning.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
Morning, neighbors. It is Hump Day Wednesday, the 21st day of August. Thank you so much for joining us on the Power Breakfast Show on Power 102 Digital, full cast in this morning. All right, so we just heard from Dr. Paul Richards. We'll hear from Wendell Stephen, Richard Ragoobarsingh. Of course, Shane and Ruben in the mix. My name is Steve Khan. 24 degrees at Piarco International Airport, 26 at Crown Point in Tobago. Weather Met Office is saying our weather is going to be like sunny conditions despite a few isolated showers. 30% low chance of the isolated heavy showers favoring western areas. All right. Of course, yesterday was a scorcher, but we did get some rain. Traffic-wise, got nothing to tell you about. All right. Good morning to you, Paul. What's happening?
Good morning, Steve Khan. Good morning, Wendell Stephen.
Good morning, gentlemen, and good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and listeners all over the globe.
Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back. You could drop off the package from the Bob Marley Museum for us here at the office.
Yeah. Sure.
All right, good. Once you said yeah, that's fine. So, Paul, we getting our Bob Marley shits.
How were your pole vaulting trials?
Oh, Jesus.
Good. So you ready for my story?
Yeah, you're 2 days behind.
No, I said when I return.
You said Monday.
Well, I thought I would have been back by Sunday. So
you know what thought make a man do? Anyway.
But I had to alter my plans in terms of my return plans. So I had to pass through Miami instead of going back through Panama.
Okay.
Yeah, but that happens. You know,
you could go through Panama and shop and come back.
Well, Panama, you don't have that kind of time to leave the airport.
Shoes that selling for $600 here is being bought in Panama for $10 US and less. You know.
I heard that. I've never spent long enough in Panama to experience the shopping.
Really?
I'm always just passing through Panama.
They have a mall there. I think it's a free zone or something. You pay like $5 or $10 US to get in, and prices are whoa.
I've heard about it. And I've seen many videos about shopping in Panama. And apparently, a lot of people head to Panama because the flight leaving for Panama always have some large group.
Yeah,
the flights that have
2 flights a day via Copa. So
yeah, they always have some large group heading out. You know.
So what's your story?
Well, let me say good morning again to everybody and how beautiful the short trip was to Jamaica. You know, but one of the reasons why I went to Jamaica was exactly one of the things that we have been discussing in the past, in the not too distant past, about opportunities for young athletes and so on, right? So I actually went to Jamaica to take a family, my grandson. A lot of people didn't know that I had a grandson.
You have a grandson.
I have a grandson who is extremely handsome young man. He passed for his first choice St. Mary's College and was attending school, but loves athletics. As a matter of fact, he has a picture with Usain Bolt, whom he met some years ago when Usain was here for Carnival in 2019. And was inspired and started to do track with Memphis Pioneers. And he loved running. And he ended up representing Trinidad and Tobago at the Carifta Games this year. He was on the contingent to Grenada for Carifta Games. And when he came back here and was running in the local trials and so on, someone saw him and said, that young man is very good, don't leave him there, give him that opportunity. And his mother, my daughter, and I took that hard decision to take him out of St. Mary's College, and he was given offered a full scholarship to Jamaica College, which is one of the top colleges and so on in Jamaica in terms of sports and academics. College that the first Prime Minister Norman Manley would have attended and so on. And so we took him to Jamaica, and he is now there, enrolled in Jamaica College to live his dream, So it was, as I say, a tough decision to take, taking him out of St. Mary's College and taking him out of Trinidad and Tobago, naturally. But
at what form you took him out?
Huh?
At what form?
In Form 3.
Oh.
Yeah. So he is in Jamaica. Hopefully he will represent. We have a dream that he will represent and a prayer that he will represent Trinidad and Tobago at the next Olympics in Los Angeles. So, I won't give his name, but he is in Jamaica as we speak, enrolled in Jamaica College. Thanks to the people who would have seen him, who would have helped, and who would have made this transition very easy and very seamless.
Nice.
To the coaches out there in Jamaica, we entrust our young one in your hands. And so I guess Jamaica is going to be a place I'll be visiting regularly now, to ensure that he's okay. My daughter works with an international airline, so she can always jump on a plane and go. You know what I mean? So things will work out. So that was my story, and it was in the context of the opportunities that people see out there that sometimes we don't see in our own. And I want to thank locally Ephraim Surratt and Don Washington in particular for assisting him, and for advising me when we needed the advice, me and my daughter, in terms of getting him out there for that full scholarship. As I said, he'll be in the dormitory, he'll be taken care of. It's not going to be easy for him because he's very quiet, very, very quiet. So that's my story.
Well, best wishes to him, and continue the dream.
Fine.
Yeah. We're very happy for him.
Many have done it before, and many will do it after. He'll be fine.
Yeah.
True.
He'll be fine.
True.
I'm sure you and your family have instilled enough values in him to take him through, so not worried.
Yeah.
If he's in Form 3, so 17, 18?
Sorry?
If he's in Form 3, 16, 17, 18?
14.
Oh, 14 is very young, but he'll survive.
He's in Form 3.
Yeah.
He'll be all right.
Yeah.
So, loath to talk about this story. Loath to talk about it.
Which one of them now?
Yeah, which one?
It was always going to go down, unfortunately, in Trinidad and Tobago, the role of race and ethnicity.
I warned you all on Monday, You'll forget what I told you all on Monday.
It has taken the turn there.
Yeah, I told you all they're going to start talking about that something.
The Prime Minister responded last evening in La Hoqueta regarding his announcement on Sunday, is it? That he and his government are going to replace TNT's, well, The three ships. Well, first of all, the argument whether it's the Nina, the Quinta, and the Santa Maria. That is one argument. They say it's three other ships. And now, some are arguing, Dr. Jerome Tiloxing apparently, who is an historian, has said the TASA should be included to show the country's ethnic diversity.
Yeah.
Now,
I warned you all on Monday.
so the move to remove Columbus because his ships, because Columbus is a troubled pass with Trinidad and Tobago.
Troubled.
Should be, I'm being very kind.
I know.
Columbus is a damn liar.
Yeah.
Lie and a scoundrel who do like that suffer. And even the leader of the opposition agreed that Columbus's past was troubling and should be revisited in this country, right? So she didn't contest that at all, for those who are wondering. But she did say there should be some caution and thought going into what is used to replace the TASA because it may raise tensions. And Dr. Tiloxing suggested the TASA, which is not indigenous to Trinidad and Tobago. So why would you put a piano too? and a Chinese instrument.
I find we just
and a
put
Syrian Lebanese instrument.
Doubles. Put doubles.
Why would you put every representation of ethnic diversity for checking off boxes' sake? What is so difficult to understand? That it was invented in Trinidad and Tobago. So in some people's estimation, I'm presuming, and you know, for the most part, even if people disagreed with the way it was announced, people have no problem with it.
Yeah, true.
Many thought there should have been consultation before, which I share. It is not the coat of arms belongs to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, so consultation and a discussion would have been productive. You understand? Many thought it should not have been announced at a PNM event, right? Because it's a national coat of arms. But by and large, the commentary I have seen have no problem with the steel pan, you know.
But it's going to but isn't it going to Parliament in any event?
Yeah, but going to Parliament, the Prime Minister now alluded to the fact that the government has a majority to go past. So Parliament is a formality. So don't come that. That is a formality.
But it's still had to be debated, Paul, at the end of the day.
It's a formality, Wendell.
Oh no, the vote might be a formality.
It's like the appointment of a commissioner of police. It's
but
it's whatever the government want go and get through, unless somebody's doing.
So the vote is the formality. But other members of the House will get an opportunity to discuss and
usually guys are one speak and move on. But yes, you're right. Right?
Yeah.
But for Dr. Tiloxing to suggest that the TASA be included, and I find, to be very honest, why are we talking about this?
Well, I didn't think you'd bring it back up, but because
why this? Because it's a top story in the news.
I know. Or I was going to tell you this morning.
Why is this taking up so much oxygen when, according to reports, a 5-year-old died from a gunshot yesterday?
Yes, she and her dad were murdered in Moruga.
Sad.
And then another couple, a young lady, was killed in an accident because her boyfriend just purchased a car and went speeding, flying through. Where is that, Steve?
Debe, somewhere there. He's
Why
flying.
is pan thing taking up so much oxygen?
That's what doubles and call it, George.
You know what? All you want to see pan and listen to Sweet Pan, come pan and powder today. There's a parade from City Hall up to the Savannah today. It's one of the better parades of Pan Trinbago that Pan Trinbago hosts, along with the city of Port of Spain. All you come now. Walk with a little bottle of powder and sprinkle. So we ain't going to see who is who when we walk in. It's just white. It's just white. That's all we'll see. White. Come. I enjoy it. And I'll be there.
I know. The contention of this is astounding to me, and it's sucking up so much oxygen in the country when so many other important things, and not that this is not important, but to me, critical issues facing us. Maybe Maybe that's the plan. Who knows?
And a set of foolish discussions about expenditure and all kind of thing.
As I was telling somebody yesterday, because somebody called me and asked me what I thought. Yes, I said, "Do you all know that in any case, we replace money regularly because bills are damaged? We print money regularly. We print letterheads. We replace and print and replace letterheads regularly
all the time.
Do you know that we do as a country? We have to do that all the time. It's just a new way you call it, the printing thing. Where's the printing?
Press.
Not the press. The mold. The mold.
Yeah.
That is the only thing they have to replace.
Yes.
And then it's chuk. That's it. Friends, somebody asked me yesterday, but let me tell you how ridiculous it gets. Somebody say, so when they replace the pan on the coat of arm, driver's permit no longer valid. I get that yesterday, Wendell.
No.
I said, no, your driver's permit will not be valid because it have a 3 ships on it. So you can't drive because it might still have 3 ships on it until you replace it with the one with the pan. I mean, come on. You all know countries do this all the time, right?
Well, I went through a list of them on Monday, and a list of big cities that changed. And so, you know, sorry.
So you're using the same money from 10 years ago?
Yeah.
When they first print these new bills?
Yeah.
That's what you already feel like using the same bills all the time.
Yeah. This is about Dr. Rowley, and this is let me leave it there.
CXC has reported, which is more disturbing to me, which is more worthy of conversation to me, that 64% or 2 out of every 3 pupils who wrote CSEC math this year fail.
Oh.
That's more disturbing to me. Good morning, Ragoobarsingh.
Good morning, guys. Morning.
And the number of students who cheated in the exam increase from 36 to 54. That's more disturbing to me. And then half of them who write Spanish fail. That's more disturbing to me. And we have to ask ourselves, why? You know what is 64? So 64%.
Is that the regional? I know that's the regional.
Regional Trinidad and Tobago, regionally.
Yeah, but what was Trinidad and Tobago's?
They didn't go into that minutia. They also didn't say which islands most of the 54 who cheat come from.
I'm sure that will come.
You understand? Maths across the Caribbean, the pass rate had been 43% last year. Of course, it had been increasing since students went back out to school, obviously.
Right, after COVID.
After COVID and the being online learning, all grades across the world went down. It had been increasing. It was 34% in 2021. It went up to 37% in 2022 when they went back out. And it rose significantly to 43%. But for some reason, it dive again this cycle. So the way I have been trained, right, in education, that is a red flag that something went wrong with the exam itself and with the curriculum. That is not a student thing.
Right.
I mean, they didn't say that, but the way I've been trained, that's a red flag for a systemic issue. Because that's a
because of the sudden change, you mean?
Exactly, in trajectory.
Yes.
And the number of students suddenly failing. That is not a student thing. There's a systems thing. There's a curriculum thing and an assessment thing. And they need to take stock of that. That is not a student thing.
All right.
Anytime you see a whole educational district doing badly, it's not a student thing.
No.
If you see a whole school doing badly, it's not a student thing. You understand?
Yes.
It's a teaching thing or an assessment thing or a combination of both. And that's what people need to realize with that kind of examination results. CXC need to take stock of that and do the assessment and see what went wrong with the curriculum. Because, you know, when the exam was completed, I heard a lot of students complaining, you know,
about how difficult it was.
Yeah, and and I'm talking about students who were straight A students, which means I didn't teach what they bring in the exam. You understand, properly, because it can't be that all of a sudden all these students just get lost in the curriculum. You understand?
Yes.
That is an examination thing, and or a teaching thing or curriculum thing. That's not a student thing. So that this one on CXC itself. But we see that.
But I see Richard put on his professor-like look. I don't know. What is he doing there? He doesn't normally look that way. He has a professor-like look this morning.
No,
apparently, he has come to lecture us.
No, I just put on my glasses. That's all.
You know what I mean?
No, I was just kind of looking at what the article considering that issue, but the statistics of Trinidad, the Minister of Education says she's mulling over the information, as did and she's currently in Barbados apparently. The Minister of Education and the Chief Education Officer, Dr. Peter Smith, said he was still processing information in terms of Trinidad and Tobago results.
Send to me, I'll process it for you for free.
And so the schools, some of the schools said they haven't gotten all of the results.
I'll process it for free. I'll organize all you and get back to you.
So we're not so sure where Trinidad and Tobago fits. One teacher though did say, well, concerning the math poll, he said the math pass rate in past years had fluctuated around 50%, sometimes slightly above or below. The exam did come difficult. Question 2 on paper 2 was a very difficult question for that level, and children spent too much time doing that question, and it would have demotivated them in other questions and taken away time from those questions. So he's suggesting that this is just a teacher who from one of these schools.
Well, I remember when the exam was completed and students came out and they were making comments about how difficult it was. And it, as I said, it speaks to the way the exam is constructed and or the way the curriculum was delivered in terms of the subject matters that were to be covered. Good news, they finally reflowed this badge of Tobago.
Oh yes, finally.
I saw that on television last night.
February, March, April, May, June, July, August. Took us 6 months. 7 months. So it's now afloat and moored by tugboats. I wonder where they're carrying it.
Well, I don't know.
No idea.
We get a free badge. Well, nobody ain't claim it yet, and
nobody claiming that one.
So we get a free badge.
But I guess one of the things they have to do is when they are able to dry dock it, they'll be able to more carefully, forensically examine it.
Check the chassis number, you mean?
To check the chassis number, whatever it is, to find out who the potential owner is, you know, and what else it had in it. So back to the story, which is very minimal at this point, where Enrico Andy Lorenzo Guerra, who is 34 years old, and his 5-year-old daughter Anika, according to many reports, I haven't seen it in the mainstream media yet, was shot at his corner mat, which he operated. He died at the scene. The 5-year-old
was it a robbery attempt or something? A robbery or something?
Well, some reports are saying 5, and some reports are saying 7-year-old daughter.
St. Mary's Moruga
were taken to the Princestown Health Facility, where she later unfortunately died. And apparently some alleged pedophile was killed in, is it Mova or Laventil? Somebody who had a history of luring teenage girls and having intercourse with them was found dead, almost decapitated in a field.
I missed that story.
Yeah, I missed that story.
Yeah, well, that was all over social media also. People saying good riddance, etc., etc. I don't know. You know how it goes in this country. Yeah, so the main stories this morning. Of course, Dr. Rowley's response to the detractors following his announcement. We will have, is it Shabaka Kambon later on this morning, Steve?
Correct is right.
Shabaka Kambon, who
he's been asking for that Columbus statue to go a long time.
he's part of a Caribbean committee on dealing with statues and symbols, etc., from a colonial past. So we can ask him about if he and the committee were consulted or not, and what he thinks of the. I'm sure he'll agree with removing anything to do with Columbus. He'd been advocating to wipe Columbus off the face of the earth.
I remember that.
No, I think he has been advocating to wipe Columbus off the face of the earth.
I'm being sarcastic, Richard. Read between the lines.
He's well, no, when you're saying it in regard to somebody, people may interpret it.
I hear you, sir.
But he's been asking for that. He sent a proposal to council, I remember, and most of us agreed with it. If I'm not mistaken, everybody agreed with it. And then somewhere along the line, it didn't happen. That was under Mayor Martinez. It didn't happen, and I'm saying, I just get in trouble with my mouth.
There's a committee now, isn't it? I've seen ads for that. There's some sort of ad these days concerning monuments and.
Yes. One of the ministries put out an ad that you could come and give your opinions and so on.
Right, yeah, they're listening opinions on the removal of statues and stuff like that. And
changing of street names and so on. Yeah, there is some sort of consultation.
There's a Caribbean committee on that. When Steve comes back, I guess we could open the phone lines.
Well, I mean, it's 16 days later, and when the prisoner that escaped is still on the loose. So
yes. So I have a video of that, with him running. I think I played it the other day, running down the road.
I don't know if that, but that was that a prisoner? Or that was one that was escaped from Glencoe.
No, he had handcuffs on.
Isn't that the one from Glencoe you're talking about?
Somebody escaped from Glencoe. What do you mean? Glencoe is a jail?
No, there was police detained somebody in the Glencoe area, and then they escaped custody.
No, this one was in the city. This one, the background is Port of Spain.
That's the one that was running through the street.
Running through the streets with handcuffs. That's not a Glencoe situation. Maybe that's a different one.
Okay, but anyway, his name is Hakeem Ishmael Mohammed, and he's still 16 days later. He's still on the loose. If he's still in Trinidad, 16 days is enough. I mean, if you're desperate enough, you can get off island.
Where? How?
There are things called boats that float on the water. Where people don't ask much questions, I assume.
They don't ask questions.
Much questions.
How about money and where you want to go?
From Icarus to Venezuela. It almost looks swimmable.
Have you
7 minutes? That's 7 minutes.
Richard, have you shared this information with the Ministry of National Security? That there are boats where people don't ask questions. Have you shared? Exercise your duty as a responsible citizen and share this information with the Ministry of National Security.
They can't ask a question if they can't understand what you're saying.
I'm speculating, yes.
Or you're speculating.
You go back now. You go back. Because of course they're rich.
Back. Aki? Tokopita?
And the finance minister is also saying that it's time for Trinidad and Tobago to go cashless. And I think
which finance minister?
There's only one finance minister.
No, there are two.
No.
There are two.
And I say the finance minister. There is only one, the finance minister.
and Richard, Brian Manning will so agree with you.
Let me open the phone lines, please. I know there could be another one. I don't know.
No.
Are we going cashless in 20 years?
No, but he's saying finance minister Corbyn is supporting moves by the Trinidad and Tobago International Finance Center to push Trinidad and Tobago towards becoming a cashless society. He spoke on August 20th, which was yesterday, at the National Financial Inclusion Survey Report launch at Tardy at the International Waterfront Complex on Rice Road. Financial Services Ombudsman Dominic Stoddard revealed that 21% of the population still does not use the formal banking system.
I wonder why.
TTIFC CEO John Outridge said it's important to reduce that number as increased financial inclusion
Well,
is
talk to the bank.
directly linked to reduction in poverty and inequality. Financial inclusion provides opportunities for marginalized and low-income individuals to access the main financial services such as savings, credit, and insurance. By empowering them with the tools to manage their finances and invest in income-generating activities, financial inclusion can help lift people out of poverty and reduce economic disparities. So, of course, the Minister of Finance also spoke about, when he traveled, like he was in Denmark, and he said he went to Denmark and paid cash somewhere, and they actually couldn't give him change because most people don't use cash.
Yeah.
If I remember, I kind of skimmed through it, so I hope I'm not misquoting. And he said that everywhere it's tapping, and you see when you go to those big cities now, even on public transport, they facilitate that you can just tap your debit cards now.
That's true. That's
true. That Trinidad
You should travel more.
Yeah. People use their watch, their phone.
Yeah.
They have credit cards that are quarter the size of a regular.
Long Island, I was the only person with a physical ticket in my hand.
Yeah.
On Long Island Railroad.
But I'll tell you, before we take this call, even using your boarding pass, where you could use your boarding pass on your phone in Trinidad, you have to have a physical ticket to them.
That's not so, Steve. That is not so. Nope. You're giving inaccurate information.
I know someone that traveled 3 weeks ago.
I am telling you.
Let me finish.
My boarding pass was scanned on my phone recently, leaving Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, I know someone.
I used my phone for the first time too on this.
Okay.
What I'm telling you, I'm just going to what I was told. When Kerry Ann was traveling to London a couple of weeks ago, and they had the boarding pass on their phone, they had to come back down to get a physical boarding pass to go back in.
Well, maybe it's not all the airlines, but maybe it's not all the airlines. That it is happening in Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, good for that.
My phone in Trinidad and in New York, and I did not have a physical board.
Well, the only thing they need to do is have that form to come back in the country. They need to do it.
Gentlemen, boarding passes have nothing to do with an airline, though. It is the agency that managing the airports.
The carrier.
The carrier. It has nothing
to do with
we should
open the phones.
Yeah, I have a call here. Good morning.
Good morning.
I use digital boarding passes.
Good morning, Dr. Paul. Good morning, Richard. Good morning, Wendell.
Morning.
When I looked at the news last night, and I saw the CEO from CXC announcing that the results for the math and English, those two subjects were very poor. And I wonder, how come CXC could announce that? Something had to be wrong with them. And it cannot be the teachers in the schools, and it cannot be the students. So bad, so bad. So you know what I'm thinking? Just now, those international universities will look at CXC cross-eyed because they will see what kind of watered-down exams they've given to the Caribbean students who want to study abroad, even though their level not even as high. But I find me getting from bad to worse. CXC kind of watered down the thing, and if they're watering it down, some issue, some cheating, all kind of shippiness. I think CXC better take a close look at themselves again and revamp a lot of things that they're doing. And before I go, I want to congratulate my daughter who got four subjects at upper level, sixth form, and she's happy now that she has finished 7 years of secondary school.
I can imagine.
Congratulations.
Well done.
Yeah.
All righty.
Yes. Right. Bye.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah. Yeah, morning, fellas.
Morning.
Morning,
Yeah,
Dean.
tonight I think they're having a consultation on the monuments, statues, and signage at the government plaza.
Who having it?
Tonight?
The 7.
Inside the
I
government.
think
Who is
it's
having it? And then
a committee, the monuments committee. They have been asking for submissions. I submitted mine about 2 months ago. I'm surprised that they're having it now. So they have been asking for submissions from groups and individuals for some months now, and I think they're having some consultation tonight between 5 and 7.
okay.
I don't know how many people know about it in the arts community or the cultural community, I think.
Well, I don't know why they're doing that tonight with pan and powder parade passing right in front of there. Anyway.
Maybe it's profound then. Might be profound. It will be interesting to know. Because as an urban planning issue, I think it's very important for urban planners. It's interesting. I see they put up that sculpture by this artist in the down by Bessel Street there. So
Yes, the Emancipation Support Committee put up that there.
yeah, but I must be had to go through
It went through City Council. We had approved it. I remember that.
Right. Yeah. So right. So all the council, I think local government people, urban planners, artists, designers, architects. I find all those people should be there. So
Maybe
yeah,
they will
that's
be.
the information.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning to the breakfast crew.
Morning.
Hey, Tinto, morning, man.
Yeah, good morning. Two things. First of all, one, happy birthday to Mr. Sastri Narang Singh. Today's his birthday, Wendell.
Hey, happy birthday, Shastri. Nice, man.
And also have a question too. Something disturbed me many years ago back home. I saw speed bumps on a road, on a side street. It's actually Wellington Street, St. Joseph. So I asked, who put that there? And they said, so and so, an individual, an ordinary citizen, put 2 speed bumps in the road. Is that legal?
No, it's not.
Huh.
I mean, it's illegal, and a lot of people do it too.
Well,
I don't know a lot, but in some communities, I think they get frustrated of how long it takes and they put it up. Sometimes it's removed, sometimes it's not. So.
Because I thought this was a government thing. That falls under what, the Ministry of Works, shouldn't it?
Well, you should get permission, but some people don't wait and they just go ahead and do it because of the risk to life and limb.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for that, guys, and have a great day.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
The 2 speed bumps around my home, I put it.
Local government is sometimes slow in terms of approving those things.
Slow? And I thought Border Spain was bad, but Arima? Oh gosh.
I didn't know what that meant, Arima. Don't trigger me now, please.
Don't trigger me.
Don't trigger me. Because I'm driving around Arima sometimes and I am like, Arima, and we always discuss this one, that Arima is fixable in that city center. It's not difficult to fix.
No.
And when I drive around Arima and I still see all of these potholes to enter Arima, well, don't talk about Omera Road. That is a disaster right now. I know they're doing the work, but it's taken way too long. And even when you're coming through some of the other entrances into Arima, the roads you have to navigate.
Timpuna Road is terrible, Richard.
Timpuna Road is horrible. and then Central Arima with the lights off. I don't know what Barry Mirage is doing. I don't know if he sleeps late. I don't know what Penelope Robinson Beckles is doing because you're still the representative of the area. I don't even know what is happening with the smart city status. There is no update. IDB, I don't know if wherever else you're doing smart cities, if it's moving ahead and you forget about Arima and you forget about that. I don't know what is going on. Baka, Ministry of Digitization, I don't know how much groundwork all you have to do again before we start to see real things moving forward into the digitization. When I sit down sometimes and I ponder, all I miss is a rocking chair to rock back and forth to go mad. So,
Richard, you sure the borough is still there?
the borough
You have newspapers? Go ahead, please.
He was triggered. He was definitely triggered.
Don't trigger, man. You trigger.
No, but Arima is I don't know what is happening in Arima.
It is time for newspapers.
All right, sorry. The boss buffing,
Yeah, because they're getting a little plaza building there, so they're happy. So anyway.
What is that building there, Paul? What is that going up there?
I understand it's a community mall.
It's a huge place, though.
And watch me, and we need my borough.
And look now, it's building fast, boy.
Can we check the newspapers, please?
Trinidad and Tobago news day for today. And of course, just in case you didn't know the date, it's Wednesday, August 21st, 2024. CXC reports poor regional performance, 64% fail maths. Gadsby Dolly, migrant children will get books and lunches. And the main pictures of the Prime Minister giving out 2 hampers. He looked like he given one to Foster Cummings and he given one to his other man over there. Oh, it's from La Hoqueta with love. Okay. So his Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley is presented with 2 hampers after the PNM La Hoqueta Talparo 10th Constituency Conference in La Hoqueta on August 20th by Lennox Ratansingh, the party's constituency chairman for La Hoqueta, and La Hoqueta Talparo MP Foster Cummings. So they're giving the Prime Minister 2 hampers.
Yes, their conference was last evening in
right, yeah,
the AGC village.
So, so that's the front page. And on the back page, City franchise captain likes WCPL title chances. Dutton backs TKR stars to shine, and TT under-14 footballers outplayed by Jamaica. That's the front and the back of the Newsday. Of course, very important, very extremely important in the Newsday today. Once you get your Newsday today, you can turn to, oh my goodness, where is it? Oh, look at this. Oh, this is the 16th. Page 17 of the Newsday. And you'll see that there is something called Lotto Madness taking place this week. Daily Express. Page 17 of the Newsday. Daily Express for today. Coat of Arms controversy. Cost not a concern is the headline that the Express went with. PM, government will not incur hundreds of millions of dollars to change national emblem. Cabo Star fire leaves passengers stranded. 54 CSEC cheaters caught. And there is a picture of refloating the Gulf Stream, which we talked about in passing. And on the back page of the Daily Express this morning, tears for Kiefer, murdered 27-year-old woman remembered as joyous person, and the pictures of her funeral and the grief there as people, watch her in her coffin, etc. I have to go in now to see what's the main sports story in the Express. Taruba gets unsatisfactory ICC rating, but CWI making sure for SA series. And Young Warriors to refocus ahead of semis. So that's it for the Express. Moving on to the Guardian for today on the front page. Mystery fire. Cabo Star grounded after engine room incident. CPEP field officer dies from dengue, which is horrible. It's horrifying hearing people die from dengue. It is horrifying. And a little scary. And refloating the Gulf Stream, there is also pictures of that process in case you wanted to watch it. And on the back page of the Guardian, Taruba cricket pitch unsatisfactory. And that's the main headline that the Guardian went with, and that's it for the 3 dailies this morning. So now you know.
All righty, let's get the results of our morning poll where we asked you yesterday. Should the opposition have been consulted before the announcement of the impending change to replace Columbus vessels with steel pan on Trinidad and Tobago's coat of arms. The results are in. 72%, 72 said yes.
In our quest to be egalitarian, I will provide a controversial question this morning.
You know, I actually had one based on your question yesterday. All right, well, let's do that one. Because I was going to ask if the opposition was consulted, do you think they would have supported the removal of the change of the coat of arms? I was going to ask that, but this is better.
My polls are always better than yours, man.
Okay, before we go down that rabbit hole, should the TASA also be included on Trinidad and Tobago's coat of arms as suggested by Dr. Jerome Tiluxing? That's our poll this morning. We still with the coat of arms, people.
Yeah.
Should the TASA also be included on Trinidad and Tobago's coat of arms as suggested by Dr. Jerome Tiluxing?
It is for the formality, right?
It is.
So
Zena sent to say good morning, guys. She says she's just tired, she old, she weary, she frustrated, and she holiday. Nah, I just made up those things. Morning, Shamin. Shamin sent a message from Zena.
Well, we know she's all of that. All right, let's go. Got some votes coming in already. So let's go. Richard P. Knight says no. Finbar Collins says no. Vianney Warwood, no. David Wares, no. Good morning, David Wares and Mrs. Claus. Good morning to you, David Wares. If anybody's looking for Santa Claus coming up in this Christmas season, you can contact David Wares. I'm his manager. In fact, contact me. I'll be his manager. I take 50%. John Cato said no. Hanif Daniel, no. Susie B, no. Slick Money Grip, no. Gene Clark, no. Gregory Bauer, no. J97, absolutely no. Lester Craigwell says no. Let's see. Geron says no. Junior says no. Captain Ron doing a show in. No.
Captain Ron is in Colorado. Morning, Captain.
Aspen, Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Roger Seawing says yes. Anthony Tinto from Anthony from Toronto says no to TASA. Let's see. Oh, Zena's on vacation, but she got people sending messages. That's not a vacation. Vincent out in Birmingham, UK says no. Danrad says yes. Lester Craigwell says no. Ish out in Malik says no. Please no. Michael Robinson in Yokohama, Japan says no. Julia S. Batiste says no. Oliver Man Warren, no. Colin Jack, no. Carol Guevara, no. Woods Hit Radio, no. CJ in New York says Zena vote no. What is this?
Zena likes no money on the phone, or?
Yeah, it had no money on the phone. Beauty Culture, no.
Paul handle that.
Darnell Mallard said no. What says you, caller?
Good morning, gentlemen. Bronson City. My answer is no.
All righty. Good morning.
What city is that?
Bronson. Good morning, caller.
Morning, DJ Ray here in Delaware. I said yes.
All right, DJ Ray, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. No in capital letters.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. No.
Radio, thank you. Let's see.
You know what's amazing?
Wayne Joseph says no. CJ New York says no. Beauty Culture says no. Gloria Gray says no. DL says no. CJ out in New York voting for herself now says no.
You know, I've always wanted to learn how to play the pan, right? And you know, the only thing I could play is the tassa.
I know. Lenny James says absolutely not. 222-8255, toll-free North Americans, 866-525-1099. WhatsApp, 318-1021. Should the TASA also be included on Trinidad and Tobago's coat of arms as suggested by Dr. Jerome T. Loxing? Wayne Bennett says no. All right, you have 2.5 minutes again to vote. So let's get those votes cracking, yes or no.
I think nobody knew who Jerome Tilloxing, Dr. Jerome Tilloxing was before the
rationale for including it, Paul, if you could contextualize it.
He said to promote ethnic diversity in Trinidad and Tobago.
Was there some sort of historical context he was giving?
Well, I'm just quoting what the newspaper said that Dr. Rowley quoted at the meeting in Lahore last night. He said that historian Dr. Jerome Tilloxing said the TASA should be included to reflect this country's ethnic diversity. Dr. Rowley said anyone saying that is either wicked, ignorant, or doesn't know the history of this country.
And they're all free.
He said it like how you just said
it. Wayne Bennett says no. Mrs. R says no. Anderson Matthew says no.
I'm surprised that this suggestion would come from an intellectual. Prominent figures of East Indian descent, including Bobby Mohammed, who led Guinness Cavaliers to Panorama titles in 1965 and 67, and ask, have you all heard about Jit Samaru and the Samaru family?
Well, there's so many, I mean...
Well, there's so many Trinidadians and Tobagonians who have contributed to the evolution of man.
The argument is nonsensical.
So, well, that's why, I didn't want to be...
Let me help you with that.
No, I didn't want to be so... sometimes you need to listen to what other people have to say.
I have listened and I disagree.
So basically, I wanted to know, what did he say? How did he contextualize why it should? So, oftentimes we just shut off and we don't listen. And so I was willing to say, well, what did he say? What was his justification?
Suggesting that the steel pan is...
I think Richard just sent up subliminal message there.
Champion diversity because of the steel pan is suggesting that the steel pan doesn't include one of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah.
Richard, was that a message for us here just now?
What?
That sometimes we need to just listen. We just shut off people and we need to listen.
Me? No, I'm just stating generally. You tried to trigger something else.
Khadijah Khan says no. Alistair Hart says no. Kenny out in Harlem says no. Reno Budu Jennings says no. Ben J. Singh from Toronto. Morning, Ben. Says no.
They're saying somebody called in there. We take it to the court because it don't belong to you.
Beefy Smith and Goodwood Tobago says no. Kathy Ann says no. Somebody else says no.
You know the old saying?
Bennett says no.
What's in a man's heart will eventually come out of his mouth?
You know, I think he was just parroting the narrative from the opposition leader. Because where did Dr. Jerome Tilloxing come out from all of a sudden?
But then the opposition, they say she has no issue with it, or something like that.
But she was...
She according to newspaper reports and a release, she said she acknowledged Columbus' past had needed to be revisited, but that the move to remove the 3 ships and replace it with the steel pan should be thought out because, and I hope I'm not misquoting here, it may elicit
encourage divisions, that's all?
Something like that.
Yeah, it may encourage ethnic division. Somewhere along those lines is where she went.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was just parroting after her.
Let's get into our major news. Starts right now.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley says that the TASA is not indigenous to TNT and will not be included on our coat of arms. CXC says that 64% of students, or 2 out of every 3 pupils who wrote CSEC math in May or June, failed the CSEC exam. Meanwhile, it says there's been an increase in cheating in the exams. Probe taking place into a fire on board the MV Cabo Star on Tuesday, and the father and his 5-year-old daughter are shot and killed in Moruga. Details in a moment. This is News 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital. I'm Afril Sintel-Bab. Good morning. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley is doubling down on his decision to place the steel pan on TNT's coat of arms and is strongly rubbishing dissenting voices who say such a move will alienate citizens of Indian descent. He also dismissed a suggestion from historian Dr. Jerome Tilak that the TASA should also be included to reflect this country's ethnic diversity. He said anyone saying that is either wicked, ignorant, or does not know the history of this country. Dr. Rowley was speaking at PNM's 10th annual constituency conference for the constituency of La Hokata, Talparo, at the HDC Village Plaza car park, La Hokata, last evening. Following his announcement that Christopher Columbus' 3 ships would be replaced by the steel pan, opposition leader Kamla Prasad Basasa urged caution, saying it could ignite racial tensions. The Caribbean Examination Council has reported that 64% of students, or 2 out of every 3 pupils who wrote CSEC mathematics in May or June, failed the exam. This, according to figures stated for the region by the Caribbean Examination Council on August 20th. The CXC held a ceremony in Dominica to officially launch the results of CSEC and CAPE, which pupils began to access online immediately after. CXC Director of Operations, Dr. Nicole Manning, said the pass rate for CSEC mathematics across the Caribbean was just 36% of pupils. She indicated the pass rate had been 43% last year, up from 37% in 2022 and 34% in 2021, the latter the likely fallout of the pandemic. Despite noting a slight rise in the percentage getting a grade 1, up from 8 to 9% of pupils over the past year, she said overall, quote, "We have got to get out of this rut," end quote. The next worst performing subject area was CSEC Spanish, which was passed by only 50% of pupils, 1 in 2 candidates. This reflected a progressive worsening from 59% in 2021, 55% in 2022, and 54% last year, down to a current 50%. Manning also noted a very surprising pass rate of just 58% for integrated science. CXC CEO Registrar Dr. Wayne Wesley gave figures to show in the region 94% of pupils failed to get 5 subjects or more, a feat achieved by only 6% of the students. Fewer than 1 in 20 pupils got 5 passes, inclusive of English and maths, he added, indicated just 4.9% of the cohort. He lamented since 2018 each year, some 11,500 pupils did not fully matriculate and so would end up unemployed or underemployed. Meanwhile, CXC Director of Operations, Dr. Nicole Manning, also revealed a notable rise in cheating in this year's CSEC exam as the organization launched the results or release of results available to individual pupils online at CSEC and CAPE level. 54 students were caught cheating in the Caribbean secondary education certificate examinations in the region this year, compared to 36 who were caught last year. The report did not identify which country specifically the students came from. The Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries reveals the overturned barge, which was grounded since February 7th, 2024, off the coast of Cove, Tobago, was successfully refloated as at 11:54 p.m. on August 19th this year. The refloat operations commenced Monday afternoon at 5:50 p.m. and were completed by 11:54 p.m. Operations were conducted under the supervision of a team from an internationally recognized salvage company, TNT Salvage Incorporated. The team comprised of a senior salvage master, naval architect, and a contingent of skilled salvers with the support of the technical staff at the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries. Chief Secretary Fali Augustine fears Tobago may face another economic setback. This is after a fire broke out at the Cabo Star's engine room yesterday, grounding the vessel and adding to the island's challenges following February's oil spill, a July shark attack, and a record high murder toll. Yesterday's incident comes just 3 days before the anniversary of a fire that occurred in the identical compartment of one of the Cabo Star engine rooms on August 23, 2023. This has prompted an investigation by the Port Authority of TNT. Augustine and the Tobago Chamber are concerned that this latest incident, forcing the vessel off the sea bridge, could negatively affect the island's economy. There are reports that a father and 5-year-old daughter were shot and killed in Moruga last night. Initial reports indicate that Enrico Andy Lorenzo Guerra, 34, and his 5-year-old daughter Anika were shot at his corner mart. He died at the scene, and his daughter was taken to the Princestown Health Facility, where she later succumbed to her injuries. We will have more information on this developing story as it comes to hand. You are listening to news on Power 102 Digital to 7 o'clock. A Princestown man has appeared before a master of the High Court charged with the murder of his mother, Mala Budram, which occurred on August 12, 2024. 31-year-old Adrian Coate of Cleghorn Village, Princestown, was charged with the offense when he appeared before Master Sukraj Goswami in the San Fernando South A High Court on Friday, 16th August. The sufficiency hearing is set for June 12, 2025. 56-year-old Budram of the same address was at her home on August 11th when she was allegedly locked in a room by a male relative and physically assaulted over a period of time. She died at the scene on August 12th. Finally, here's weather news for the period today till midnight. Trinidad and Tobago, mostly sunny conditions despite few isolated showers. There's a low chance of the isolated heavy shower or thunderstorm favoring western areas of Trinidad during the afternoon. Mostly fair night apart from the odd isolated shower. Gusty wind, street or flash flooding can occur in the event of heavy showers or thunderstorms. Expect a temperature high of 34 degrees Celsius at Piarco International Airport and 33 degrees Celsius at Crown Point in Tobago. Currently it's 25 degrees Celsius at Piarco and 28 degrees Celsius at Crown Point. Recapping your headlines to 7 o'clock, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley says the TASA is not indigenous to TNT and will not be included on its coat of arms. CXC says that 64% of students, or 2 out of every 3 pupils who wrote CSEC mathematics in May or June, failed the CSEC exam. Meanwhile, it says there's been an increase in cheating in the CSEC exams. A probe is taking place into a fire on board the MV Cabo Star on Tuesday, and a father and his 5-year-old daughter are shot and killed in Moruga. Well, that was news on Power 102 Digital. I'm Avril Sintel-Bab. Look out for more news in detail at 12 noon today and an update at 8 o'clock this morning. For more details, log on to power102fm.com.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
All right. Thank you so much, Avril, for our major news. You can join her again. Come at 8 o'clock for news brief. Traffic-wise, usual stuff. From Couva to Sugar Gorners, Trin City, I'm seeing one accident, and that is by Mausica Road. All right. And that intersection on the Churchill Roosevelt Highway. I don't know if it's east or west, but by Mausica and the Churchill Roosevelt Highway, there is an accident. All right. Let's see if we have any more votes to our morning poll. Let's see. Thomas Diaz says no. Ingrid Adams says no to the poll from New York. Cheryl Henry says no. Just a nice guy says no. Miss Ingrid says yes to the poll. Okay, let's see if we have any on WhatsApp. No. Don't know who that's from. I have no TASA. Okay. Black Pearl. Morning. Black Pearl says no. All right. And
I don't think people listen to Dr. Rowley. This had nothing to do with diversity or anything of the sort. It was about the national instrument, people. It had nothing to do with balancing anything or whatever. The society is balanced enough as it is, you know. It's only we that's just playing the fool politically, you know. You understand?
Well, I think, Wendell, I think that's what comes back to the point I was making yesterday. That when you're changing national symbols, well, first of all, it shouldn't be done at a political conference. Because it's a
You mean it shouldn't be announced? Because I don't know it was done there.
Well, it should be announced there.
Yeah.
It should be soberly done in terms of the correct seriousness about changing a state symbol.
Okay.
Because you run the risk that every government that comes in power with a simple majority could simply say, well, I change and you go to arms, I finally leave out something.
Yes, it's possible. It's possible.
Which takes us down a nonsensical rabbit hole.
And that's why the argument about consultation is a valid argument.
Yeah, so it should have a little bit more soberness to how it's done. I'm not disagreeing that the steel pan deserves to be there, and I think the vast majority of people are in agreement with it. But I'm just saying, when you do it at a political convention, it raises political issues.
Okay, I concede with that.
And state symbols deserve better than that. That's what I'm saying.
I concede to that argument that it probably should not have been done at that time. But I mean, these things have happened in the past, you know, where people take the opportunity to score political points, because that's what it is. Maybe at the end of the day.
Let me ask you something, guys. Dr. Keith Rowley is an experienced politician. Agreed?
Very.
Do you think Dr. Rowley didn't know that there was going to be this hoopla?
I think he did.
When he made the announcement, one, and two, when he made the announcement at a PNM special convention and not in Parliament?
Yes.
Okay.
And not only that, he basically said it was a fait accompli without saying
and said it was a fait accompli because we have a majority in Parliament?
Yes.
So it's not.
And when you say we have a majority in Parliament and it is not being considered, it done happen already. He already knew what would come.
Yeah.
So at that point, it became not only national but political.
Yeah. And I'm just saying, when it comes to
right,
Richard
is absolutely right.
It should be a little bit more reverence, you know.
If it were announced and in Prime Minister's statement, and the Speaker of the House stood and said the Prime Minister has a statement and he has 20 minutes, whatever they usually do, right? And he made the announcement in Parliament, it'd be a totally different response.
And again, it is subjective. It's a timing. You know, he probably felt that in the euphoria of that moment, that day, that now is the time to say.
No, the other consideration that I discussed with someone yesterday was I don't think that this is separate to the fact that the government brought to Parliament recently and made sure it was passed before the recess the bill to make the steel pan the national instrument. And the fact that the Prime Minister said that the coat of arms change was happening before the 24th of September.
Yes.
Parliament is on recess until the first week in September or the second week, something like that. He would have had to make that announcement if he did it in Parliament, either before the recess or 2 weeks after in that interregnum, which would be a shorter time before the 24th. And I don't think he could have done it in Parliament. He would have done it in Parliament before the bill was passed to make the steel pan national instrument, which was done in the Senate, which was passed to the Senate on the literal last day that the Senate could sit before the recess.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's separate considerations that the government had been talking about or the cabinet had been talking about. I think it's all interconnected. Because then you could also justify, well, it is now officially in law the national instrument. So by extension, putting it on the coat of arms is almost a no-brainer if you want that consideration.
So let me ask this question for our historians and our people who do fact-checking and so on. The change from the Trinity Cross to the Order of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, where was that done and when was that done? How was it announced?
I can't remember.
It was under the People's Partnership.
I can't remember.
I'm not asking, I'm telling you. But I don't know. I can't remember the circumstances in where the announcement was made.
Was it Maslow Pandey or Patrick Manning or something? Was it? Who was it?
Wasn't it, Miss? Oh, yes, you're right, you know. You're right, Paul. It might have been Patrick Manning. It was
The conversation may have started under Mr. Pandey late.
No, the conversation started with Satmaraj, deceased, not so?
Yeah, and then I think it was actualized by the late Patrick Manning.
Okay.
If I'm not, I could stand corrected, but that's what my memory is telling me.
Me too. I could stand corrected also.
Yeah.
So,
anyway,
but somebody,
the results of the poll.
Somebody will send us the information, I'm sure.
Yeah, the poll this morning was, should the TASA also be included on TNT's coat of arms as suggested by Dr. Jerome Tilaksing? We had 62 people voting on the poll in the allotted time. And of the 62 people that voted, 58 of you said no, you do not think the TASA should be included on the Trinidad and Tobago coat of arms. And 4 of you said yes, it should be.
Yeah. I think
double checking my math there. Super, yes, is right. So 58 said no and 4 said yes. Of course, you can continue to vote on this poll throughout the day and through our programming, and we'll give you the final results tomorrow morning, which will be Wednesday, believe it or not. And of course, in other important news happening in Trinidad and Tobago, theatre is on this weekend. Lotto Madness is on at the Central Bank.
We're right into that.
Sunday at 6.
The comment I was making had to do with the poll, which put a pause. Wendell, you see how my poll is growing every day. It's up to 62 people responding.
Yeah, I notice.
Notice it's growing every day, right?
And once it comes with that ethnic challenge, that ethnic balancing, I notice it's growing even larger.
But what is larger than 62 is 30 million, which is the pot at the Lotto Madness, which is on this weekend, Saturday at 8:30 and Sunday at 6:30. The box office at Central Bank Auditorium opens from 12 noon to 6 p.m. daily, and tickets are available at all the usual outlets, including all Case-Bed Fashions at West Mall, Eastgate, Brentwood Mall in Chagonas, Electronics Arima, Jubilee Rawi in Tinnapuna, and Tony's Florals at Val Park Shopping Plaza, and of course Shafle Auto Services in Shafle. So you can get your tickets at all of those outlets, as well as the Central Bank box office, which, as I said before, opens from 12 noon to 6 p.m. daily. Lotto Madness, and of course that's on this weekend. That's just our public service announcement.
So the ORTT was in fact started in 2008 under Patrick Manning, right? It was changed from the Trinity Cross to the ORTT in 2008.
Yeah, I have good polls and good memories.
Well, clearly.
Good morning, Mr. Kambon.
You have elephant-type memory.
How are you? Good morning.
It looks you're
very low. Your mic level is quite low.
Yeah, we hardly hear any
that
now.
Right.
Fix that, Steve. Can't go buffet,
Mm-hmm. And you don't want to get more from me.
That, All right. He will chastise you urgently.
Take it up to like 80, 85.
85.
Yeah, directions.
How is that? Better?
It's better.
It's better. All right, carry it up to 95.
How are we doing there?
We're getting better.
Yeah, that's fine.
We can work with that.
Pointing up to Andrew and don't worry with Steven. So
it looks like you guys are looking to have some fun today.
Always.
We have fun all the time.
Are you seeing our poll question on the screen?
Well, this is how it becomes clear that we're in the mood for some entertainment.
Why are you calling our poll entertainment? Would you get proper answer to our poll, Mr. Kambon?
Well, yes. Look at that. You all let this man get you all involved in some political mischief.
Did Shabaka say yes to the poll?
No, I did not.
What is your answer? Would you agree with that suggestion, Shabaka?
Well, I agree with Dr. Tilaksing's suggestion. Have you asked Dr. Tilaksing if that's a serious suggestion?
Wow.
That's the answer right
there. Let me move that question from you. Thank you for joining us this morning. Now you are part of the Caribbean Committee on what's the committee called? it escapes
No,
me.
I am not part of the government committee. I am part of the Caribbean Freedom Project, which introduced the idea.
Caribbean Freedom Project. That's what I was trying to say. Caribbean Freedom Project.
Yeah,
and
we have.
What's that? Just give us some context as to what that project is meant to do.
Well, in a nutshell, right now, I am sitting down in front of a document called Confronting the Past to Free the Future. It is a civil society report on national monuments, memorials, markers, signs, and symbols that glorify colonial violence, racism, and white supremacy. Among the monuments, signs, symbols, etc., that have been highlighted in this document is the coat of arms, and this document was produced by a collection of Trinidad luminaries. Sorry, pardon me.
Bless you.
We have Dr. Claudius Fergus, Dr. Carol Boyce Davies, Sister Zakia Wadada, Pulitu Springer, Dr. Tahimba Salandi, Dr. Dominic Kalipasad, Brother Rodney Piggott from Tobago, Brother Kafra Kambon, Mr. Ato Osei from South, an artist and musician and painter, Shaman Raoul Keith Simon of the Warao Elders Council of San Fernando, and Donna Bermudez, the Cacica of the Warao Nation of Trinidad and Tobago, and of course the late Professor Brinsley Samuel. All these people would have met over the last 2 years before Brinsley passed away to develop this document, to look for the people and values that we celebrate in our place, to look critically at the people and values that we celebrate in our public spaces. And of course, in July 2020 or 2021, let me make sure I have the dates right here, my friends. I think it's 2021. We would have petitioned 2020, July 2020, just before Parliament closed, we petitioned the government successfully, the Parliament successfully, to establish a national committee. And that national committee is the government committee you're talking about. And so, we are the ones who have driven this issue. And the government, of course, is already holding our document, which includes, as I said, a very elaborate piece on the coat of arms. And so we're very happy to see that our activism is bearing fruit.
So would you consider the fact that the government has the document from the Caribbean Freedom Project type of consultation and part of the consideration that led to this decision as announced by Dr. Rowley?
Well, as I said, we petitioned Parliament in 2020 to look critically at these things. We successfully did pass unanimously. Nobody in the Parliament objected to the idea. And then we kept the pressure on. I'll tell you something exclusively here that there's nowhere else. I mean, you all want to get into the details. We actually consulted with international human rights lawyers and considered genuinely, we wrote what we would call a pre-action protocol letter to the government, telling them that we would we'd be prepared to sue if they did not move the matter forward. We're a very serious organization, and I thought it would be very interesting to see if the government of Trinidad and Tobago, or any Caribbean country for that matter, would want to hold on to monuments that glorify racism and white supremacy and celebrate colonial violence.
What the pre-action protocol had indicated it would sue the government for?
Well, we were going to do something experimental. As I said, we've been consulting international lawyers and so on, and we felt that we would do one of those unprecedented cases. If the having raised the issue of monuments that, for example, you take a monument like Christopher Columbus. What you're celebrating with Christopher Columbus is the genocide of your indigenous people, and they still exist. You're also celebrating on his first voyage, his very first voyage, he started transporting people as against their will across the Atlantic. That is the dawn of the transatlantic trade in human beings, or traffic in human beings. So Christopher Columbus is not just responsible personally for the invasion and occupation of the Caribbean and the initiation of indigenous genocide, but the initiation of another one of the great crimes in human history, or the crimes against humanity, two crimes against humanity, the transatlantic trade or traffic in human beings. And we're saying that having initiated a thing, we've had over 10,000 signatures to the mayor of Port of Spain. The mayor actually, we discovered that there was a meeting in the mayor's office, and in that meeting, the council voted to remove the statue of Columbus to the museum, and the mayor was the one who vetoed that, using his power to veto that. We felt that in these circumstances, we could make a legal case if the government was not going to move forward on the matter, and we would have indicated that to all those in authority. But let me tell you, right now, we really want to congratulate the government on moving this matter forward. Like the university back in 2017, when we challenged them on the issue of Milner, I think, when you just don't know that you're sitting down on something so egregious, it is one thing. But I think when anybody with a bit of genuine concern for this country and for the people of the Caribbean really understands what we are participating in, they move. And that's why I have no doubt that the Trinidadians who find this objectionable only find so because they just have no idea what they are involved in.
So an announcement like what was made by the Honorable Prime Minister Shabaka didn't come as a surprise to you at all?
Well, I felt certain for the last 2 years, I mean, I would have said this publicly anywhere, that Columbus was gone. And I remember an old Indian gentleman on a show. It might have been Power 102. It might have not this on this station, but another host on this very same channel. We were having a discussion about 2 years ago, and an elderly Indian gentleman, after he became convinced by me that something was wrong with honoring and glorifying Christopher Columbus, he said, "So what do you expect to happen next? You're going to move he automatically made the link. He says, so you're going to move you're going to change the coat of arms?" And I just laughed. I didn't want to, I didn't feel it was the right moment to explain to him that yes, it is an egregious sin to have the most important symbol in your country, celebrating such horrendous historical atrocities. And of course, it's an insult in particular to the indigenous people, and of course to anybody who knows what these symbols represent.
And Shabaka, you reminded me just now of that situation at the city council, because I was part of the city council that voted in favor of removing that Columbus statue. Can we expect then, because there's a new mayor now, can we expect a renewal of that proposal? No,
because when we moved towards petitioning Parliament, the matter was moved above the mayor. The mayor is no longer the one responsible for this matter. It's actually in the office of the Prime Minister, in that committee. So that's where the matter resides. So it will not go back to the mayor. I expect the consultations to begin shortly, and a lot of, I don't think we're going to get every single thing that we advocate for, and that's not how it should be, really. People should have a chance to, look at things critically and to make decisions that they think are in the best interest of the country moving forward, but a significant portion of the things that we think are just and correct will happen.
Well, if you could, for the benefit of our listeners, tell us a few of those things. I know it had to do with street names in Port of Spain also too. I think Duke Street was one, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, indeed. In fact, I could just list them right here from the document in front of me. And I should really try to make this document available to you, gentlemen.
I was going to ask if you could send it to us.
But what we have is the first thing, and the thing is the moral case for honoring Kwame Ture. Of course, Kwame Ture was born on that street which we call Duke Street today. He was the third most important person in the civil rights movement in the United States of America before becoming one of the great revolutionaries of the 20th century and one of the greatest Pan-Africanists of the 20th century. The man who coined the term Black Power. He was banned from his country of birth for 28 years by the actual incumbent government, by the PNM, by Eric Williams. In fact, Williams was so paranoid about Kwame's power that he wouldn't allow him to land in Piapo Airport in transit. He was banned from touching the soil. Williams probably felt that people would meet him in the airport, and that might be too much. And so we feel that this government in particular has a role to play in, something, in terms of rewriting that historical wrong. The NAR government was the one that rescinded the ban. The Pandey government helped to pay his medical fees. The PNM government has not yet come forward to give Kwame Ture the degree of respect and to celebrate his name in such a way that he deserves. And of course, when we think about celebrating historical figures, we're not just thinking in terms of what they deserve, but in terms of the way that they can inspire another generation. So our Trinidadian, when you look at the way Trinidadians kind of move around, it's some of the more negative aspects of our conduct and so on. You can see the potential for us to benefit from knowing the best, the most courageous, the most brilliant of our ancestors, those who really, especially like Kwame Ture, who really graced the world stage. People like that, our children could benefit from knowing more about people like that. So we start off with Kwame Ture, and then we move into our committee's findings about the things that we need to remove. And at the top of the list is Christopher Columbus. Statues and places and anything named in his honor. He is the most sacred ritual. Worshipping Christopher Columbus I describe as one of the most sacred rituals of colonialism. It is at the center of what we call colonial epistemic violence. Everything else starts from there, and so Christopher Columbus is the first person on the list. From there, we move to Thomas Picton and Ralph Abercrombie. And, we lumped them together because they were teammates. They actually came into the Caribbean the reason for coming into the Caribbean was to put down the revolutionary wars of emancipation that our people were raging in the second half of the 18th century. That's how they came into the Caribbean, and they did so quite successfully. In the process, they killed many of our greatest leaders across the region. They were supposed to move on from the English-speaking Caribbean into Haiti, but they were unsuccessful. The Haitian Revolution was successful before they got there, and in that whole within that whole context, they ended up taking Trinidad, and Trinidad became a British colony. And of course, Picton became the first British governor of Trinidad, and one of the worst governors, one of the most brutal, vile, virulent governors in the history of this country. So
well, if you get to it, Abercrombie, Paul 1 and 2 will have to change all this stationery.
This thing about changing stationery and thing. How does this work out? We're talking about confronting our past, coming to terms with who these people are, what we are celebrating. The colonials did a number on us, right? They've turned us into, we don't think about it too much, but foreigners who know the history come here and we are a laughing stock, because here we are, on one hand, calling for reparations. We are part of a Caribbean collective that is now seeking reparations for genocide of Native people and the enslavement of Africans. But we are publicly glorifying the people who are responsible for those great crimes on our streets.
But then, Shabaka, what does that tell you about, two-part question, what does that tell you about the state of awareness, about the real history? Because a lot of people believe the nonsense Columbus put in them in history books over the years, still believe it, and as fact, And part two of the question is, and this is something I disagree with, but it is something that's propagated over and over and over when these conversations start. Well, the history, good, bad, or ugly, is our history, and they wiping out our history.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna give you a shocking fact about our history, and let's see if that could mobilize us to begin to understand what we're actually missing. I'm gonna give you two quick ones. One, in 1854, a Trinidadian by the name of Numa Diocese. He was wealthy. He had one drop or a couple drops of African blood in him. He would have been very light-skinned, probably past for white in Trinidad today. But he took 700 Trinidadians who were similarly would have been, majority of them would have been his type of Trinidadians, what we would have called free colored, some free blacks. 700 of them left this country to go to Venezuela, to colonize, to set up a colony called Numancia. And Numa was a big businessman. He had property, he might have even had a newspaper, he had all kinds of other businesses. And he left a note saying, it is impossible for a person with one drop of black blood to find any degree of happiness in this country. And he was able to get 700 people to follow him to Venezuela to set up a colony. It was ultimately unsuccessful, but just their time in that part of the country gave birth to Venezuelan Calypso. And I could give you some examples of but the point is that, nobody knows this story. Nobody understands what Numa would have experienced. Give you another example. In the Second World War, when the Americans set up a base in Trinidad, the British asked them not to send any what we call quote-unquote black troops. I don't like to use these words so casually, but they didn't want any African Americans to come to Trinidad. Why? They didn't want us. They were involved in a degree of, they had exposed us to such adversity, to a kind of experiment in violence, where our calories were so low, our living standards were so low, that they did not want us to see an African American soldier, because these guys were much better fed, taller, bigger, stronger, clean, much better paid. And we're talking about African Americans now from the segregated, lynching South. They did not want us to see them, because they were treating us so badly that they felt that the sight of them would have meant that we would have been able to see an African person like ourselves who was so much better off that we would start to question how we were being treated by the British. So this is the level of violence that we were exposed to post-emancipation. And all of this now is completely hidden from the people. I'll give you one last example for your listeners. Ask anybody to tell you the name of one slave master. Right? They're all around us, right? The names are everywhere, but nobody could tell you.
I could call the head of a conglomerate, but I won't.
The point I'm making is that nowhere in the teaching of our history are we taught, anything substantial about our past, right? If I were to ask anybody in this station that I could challenge this one, for sure I could challenge you guys too. Tell me where I could go in this country and find one implement of colonial violence that I could show my class. Tell me where I could find one whip. Tell me the building. CLR James said that the whip was was delivered with more frequency than food on the plantation. Where could I find one to show the kids what they look like? You can't.
Well, it's interesting because I told Wendell and Richard and the audience when I visited Ghana and went to what's the name of the place, Wendell? Elmina, and walked through that compound and walked into the room where my four parents were huddled like cattle and put on the ship and had to huddle without food and water. It was so soul stirring because of the evidence, the physical evidence of the atrocities of slavery, that it actually, between feeling sick and feeling mind blown, is astounding. But what about the other part of the question? The typical response, well, it's an ugly history, but it's our history. And if we keep wiping out the statues, next thing we'll change Port of Spain from Port of Spain because this is not Spain, and la-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da-di.
That is a testament to the success of colonial epistemic violence, or colonial violence enacted on or through knowledge. That is, it was successful. They did exactly what they wanted to do with us in the time that they had with us. They turned their heroes, the worst villains in our history, into our heroes. They made us worship the very people who committed the worst atrocities against our ancestors. And I would say to you that that is both a sin and a shame in equal measure. And what the Prime Minister is doing now is beginning to correct that. And as soon as we wake up to understand that, we will understand that Prime Minister Rowley has written himself into the history books on the right side of history, and we will remember him for the next few hundred years. He was about.
Isn't it also a testament to the success of the indoctrination that, unfortunately, while it should be a symbol, and this is my opinion, people could do like it if they like, of real emancipation in a sense, or real freedom of thinking in a sense, it is now turned in by some quarters to an African versus East Indian thing.
Yeah, well, this is the nature of politics in this country. If Prime Minister Rowley says today, I no longer want to, I changed my mind, guys. We're going to keep the 3 ships. The opposition party is going to become the advocate of removing them. And they'll say, this man totish, this man think. This is the nature of Trinidadian politics. And if the PNM decided the day after that they would come back and move, then the opposition would say, and that's really, really unfortunate. I don't know that has so much to do with our indoctrination as it has to do with our politics.
Yep, you're very right.
Yeah, I'll agree to that.
Mm-hmm.
So the issue with politics and state symbols, and we were making the point earlier, Shabaka, that I'm of the view that it should have been a little bit more sober discussion on the issue and how he did it, rather than at a PNM rally, so to speak, because it's still a state symbol.
Yeah.
And it should have a certain measure of reverence to that in terms of changing it. And so that you get some sort of, because you don't want that another government comes in power and say, well, we're changing it because we have a majority. And then another one comes back and say, well, we're changing it again because we have a majority. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So you need some sort of consensus.
Yeah. Richard, I don't always agree with you, but I always agree with your logic. I think that is very clear. I think your point is well taken. I think the platform may not have been the best, because in a sense, then it politicizes the issue.
Yeah.
But what do you think are the next steps? Because Columbus's statue and the 3 ships are just part of a myriad of egregious symbolism that exists throughout Trinidad and Tobago, and by extension the wider Caribbean. So how do you think this should evolve in, as Richard said, a sober, productive manner?
Well, let me say that first of all, the wider Caribbean is moving ahead of us. The very first attempt to remove this kind of symbolism was in 1954 in Guyana. And then the national poet laureate of Guyana, what was his name? Martin Carter, and another brother would have bombed the Queen Victoria statue. That would have been the first act of rebellion on the part of the people of the Caribbean against celebrating, glorifying the genocide of their native, the native people and the enslavement of Africans, the colonization of the space, which would have included the indentureship of our Indian brothers and sisters, and the apartheid that followed post-emancipation. And so, some of the other Caribbean countries have just done away with Columbus, like St. Lucia, for example. Whatever they named for Columbus, they just renamed it for Derek Walcott without much fanfare. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, some of my colleagues over there are complaining about the pace of progress, but about a year now, the Prime Minister there, Ralph Gonsalves, said he was going to remove all of them. He said he wanted to use those spaces to honor the greats of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So we are, in fact, mere motley moved on monuments of that kind in Barbados. We are, in fact, just a little bit behind the curve here in Trinidad and Tobago. And I think that's the first part of the question. The second thing, what was the second part of the question? Forgive me.
The issue of how it should progress in Trinidad and Tobago, because the statues and coat of arms is one thing, but then there's so many, as you say, Picton Street, Abercrombie Street.
So I think that I lament what happened at the University of the West Indies to some extent. I don't think there was enough discussion and debate and dialogue to really help to move the students into an understanding of who Alfred Milner was and why it was important for us as a people and independent people to look critically at what we were celebrating and glorifying in our public spaces. I don't think we did. The issue was aired enough at the university. I mean, of course, once the authorities there realized, who Milner was, once we brought it to their attention, they were eager not to have to, become an international issue to bring the university into shame and disrepute. But but these are teaching moments, and if this proceeds in such a way that the society does not get a chance as a whole collectively to confront its past, to learn something about how it developed, to get a real sense of our history, then we would not have really benefited the way we should from this issue, at least the way I envisioned it when I started the project and launched it officially in 2017.
Yeah. How far do you think, because you have this committee that's set up now under the Office of the Prime Minister to look at it, and there's going to be a consultation process where people are going to put forward their arguments on whatever their lens through which they see the issue, and they're going to come forward. Are you confident that the government is going to act on the matter in alignment with what the Caribbean Freedom Project sees? Because I just want to use the reference of in a way, the constitutional reform, which was also consultative, and the current administration already whipping some of it out of the way and saying, no. So what's the purpose of consultation if it's just going to be whipped apart? No. Almost arbitrarily.
Yeah, well, the reason that we set up a shadow committee is because we do not trust politicians generally. I've never gone into conventional politics precisely because, I have limited, I have my own, concerns about the way politics, operates. But what I would say is that we have taken that into consideration. We set up a shadow committee with, I think, enough luminary power, and we intend to send our national report to the United Nations, what would you call it, boy? there's a new body that was set up historically. I went to the first meeting, the historic meeting in Geneva. The African, there's a commission. Anyway, there's a number of international organizations that we've determined to send our report to, regional and international organizations. And so for some of the monuments, if we're not, there are going to be some that we consider to be, that we will not compromise on. And if we're forced to, we're going to continue to take action, to continue to pressure anybody who's in power. We're not talking about PNM alone now. If this could move on to some other administration, we're going to pressure them to do what we think is right. But I think that the announcement by the Prime Minister signals that this government understands. You see, once you get to a point where you understand the past, you begin to, and you have the courage to confront it the way that the Prime Minister has, you find that, your will and moral character is going to choose to act. And so, I'm pretty confident.
You're pretty confident that you're going to get a lot of what you think needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I don't think, as I said, this was never about, it should never be about the opinions of any individual or group of people. What happens in a country should never be about that. So everything I want and so on shouldn't be an issue. But I'm saying that there are some things that we've determined are, beyond the pale and that need to, for example, I'm sure there's going to be some pushback on Woodford, particularly because of how he's treated in our history. We have to thank him for the Queen's Park Savannah and how nice Port of Spain is and the sidewalks and blah 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 and so on. So some people
I thought we had to thank God for the Queen's Park Savannah. And the indigenous people, I didn't know we had to thank Woodford for the Queen's Park Savannah.
Wait. There's gonna be some interesting pushback. They're gonna say that
we had to thank Woodford for the Queen's Park Savannah. You see the Queen's Park Savannah? You see how your mind's still caught up in it? You thank Woodford for the Queen's Park Savannah?
You're gonna hear that. This is the kind of conversation you're gonna hear coming up over the next couple of months. But we feel that even though Woodford contributed to the cathedral downtown and the Roman Catholic and the Anglican cathedrals and so on, we feel that he was one of the greatest white supremacists in our country's history. Mm-hmm. And we will in short measure, we will ask.
Why say we feel rather than we know?
Well, we know. I mean, oh God, this man. When we start to list the kind of positions and policies that Woodford enacted against people of color, is endless. It just don't make any sense listing them all. You have to pick 10, 15 and put them in, and the litany is so long that it's impossible to list them all in one document. The man was he hated people of color. He will not have a meal with you if he discovered you could look white with blonde hair and blue eyes. But if Woodford imagine that one of your great grandparents had a drop of black blood, you could not sit at a table with Woodford.
Shabaka, you might need to clarify. I just see a ridiculous question in the chat here, and this is just part of what we have to deal with in this beautiful milieu. And someone is actually asking, is Shabaka Kambon your birth name? Like, it's so out of this thought process that could actually be your birth name. And the question itself is so astounding to me.
Oh, God. That same doctorate person?
I like Trinidad, yes. Let me tell you something.
Well, the thing is that we do have, Dr. Brinsley Samaru was one of my close confidants right up until his passing. And he actually, when he died, we did not manage to get all his notes. He had a real long list of places in South and Central Trinidad that he felt very strongly had to be renamed, and he even, his rationales, went beyond some of the things that we had even considered. So it was a real loss to us that what we're trying to do now is to recover some of the spaces that Dr. Samaru indicated from the recordings of the meetings, because he was supposed
But why do you think a lot of his people like him, not only him, but people like him and their works are not celebrated? I had the honor to interview Dr. Samaru on 3 occasions. And in one, he presented a thesis to me that even the British colonial masters' insistence that our independence was predicated on the fact that we adopt this Westminster system that was designed to keep us African versus Indian in the way it was handed down to us. People don't hear about that and how brilliant these theses are in terms of what we're experiencing today as a country.
Yeah, so I think Brinsley would have experienced what some of the Black Power African, because you had African, Indian, and white Black Power revolutionaries. I just had a celebration this weekend where we celebrated Sister Aintu Springer, Ivan Lachlan, and my father. And of course, Ivan would have been the a white Trinidadian, Lachlan. And he would have very much been part of that Black Power generation, and he would have marched to Caroni and so on. So you have, that generation, what they would have experienced within the African community is the same thing that Brinsley would have experienced in the Indian community. When you jump ahead of, and I'm going to use the term Negroes now, Negroes not meaning African people, but Negroes is a slur. It's a term synonymous with slave. When you have the opportunity to turn somebody from a free person through the violence, the physical violence and the mental violence, to adopt your worldview, an imperialist worldview, even though they are the ones who are oppressed in the system, we call them Negroes in the African community. And you have Indian Negroes and African Negroes who have according to Leroy Clark, they've drunk the hot molten bronze, and they've become like domesticated animals. They reflect the views of their former masters, and and you have them on both sides. And if an Indian or an African person comes forward with a different perspective, that comes forward to challenge the ideas that they've been given by their former masters, they will critique them in the worst way. They will attack them. They will undermine them. They will try to eviscerate them from the public space.
Shabaka Kambon, his birth name, for those of you asking. Thank you for being with us.
Well, that's actually an interesting story. Yeah? So Shabaka I would have been from that generation. I was given the name Shabaka at birth. But you know what I discovered one day? That my father's name had not been officially changed yet when I was born. So it really, it seems like a funny question. It's funny to me. I only discovered this a few years ago. I tried to get my documents right.
It's funny to me as well. The question is quite loaded, but thank you for being with us this morning.
The second part of the question is
very telling. That's all I will say. But not surprising in many cases. Thank you for being
the
with
conversation,
us.
Shabaka, as always.
We appreciate this.
Have a conversation with you on this.
Take care, gentlemen. All the best.
Yeah.
Great.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. All the best.
Tell you all have a wonderful day. Be safe. Coming up next, Dennise Demming talks to Kern Rose, digital marketing and how it can benefit you in Trinidad, Tobago, and Power Conversations.
All right. Yeah. Folks, have an absolutely wonderful day. Remember to let go and let God.
And digital marketing is what happens on social media with Lotto Madness, which is on this weekend, Saturday at 8:30 and Sunday at 6:30 at the Central Bank Auditorium. Get your tickets early. You need to get the stress out of your body, then attend theater. Trust me on this. So we're on Saturday at 8:30, Sunday at 6:30 at the Central Bank Auditorium. The box office at the Central Bank Auditorium opens from 12 noon to 6 p.m. daily. The ad is in the Newsday today, page 17. You can see all of the information there. You can also check RSRR Productions Theater on social media for more information on where tickets are sold, even though I told you already for the morning. Have a fantastic day, whatever you do. And remember to smile and laugh. It is great for your health.
All right. Thank you, Richie Rich. Of course, Lotto, tonight's draw is $9.2 million. Let's get into our 8 o'clock news brief. If he is in.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
This is your news update to 8 o'clock. I'm Afril Cynthia Bab. Good morning. Shabaka Kambon, director of the Caribbean Freedom Project, is calling for the renaming of several streets in the country. He was a guest on the Power Breakfast show this morning. He said Trinbagonians tend to benefit from knowing more about local figures who had a prolific effect on TNT's history. He says that they are also calling for any statues or figures of Christopher Columbus to be removed immediately. He stated that to keep them standing would be to contribute to what he termed the sacred rituals of colonialism. He said that foreigners who come to TNT laugh because this country publicly glorifies those responsible for imperialism in TNT. Kambon insisted that based on the history of TNT, steps should be taken to rectify this view as soon as possible. He lamented what he said was the inability to embark on a teaching program to educate the public and especially students of the true history of Trinidad and Tobago and local figures whose incredible impact, go largely unnoticed. He also said that the platform that the Prime Minister used to announce changes to the coat of arms recently was not the best. He believes that making the announcement at a political rally may have affected the reverence of the decision and the announcement. Well, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley is doubling down on his decision to place the steel pan on TNT's coat of arms and is strongly rubbishing dissenting voices who say such a move would alienate citizens of Indian descent. He also dismissed the suggestion from historian Dr. Jerome Tilaksing that the TASA should also be included to reflect this country's ethnic diversity. And he said anyone saying that is either wicked, ignorant, or does not know the history of this country. The Caribbean Examination Council has reported that 64% of students, or 2 out of every 3 pupils who wrote CSAC mathematics in May or June, failed the exam. This is according to figures stated for the region by the Caribbean Examinations Council on August 20th. The CXC held a ceremony in Dominica to officially launch the results of CSAC and CAPE. CXC Director of Operations, Dr. Nicole Manning, said the pass rate for CSAC mathematics across the Caribbean was just 36% of pupils. Meanwhile, CXC Director of Operations Manning also revealed a notable rise in cheating in this year's CSEC exam as the organization launched the release of the results. 54 students were caught cheating in the CSEC examinations in the region this year compared to 36 who were caught last year. The report did not identify which countries specifically the students came from. And there are reports that a father and 5-year-old daughter were shot and killed in Moruga last night. Initial reports indicate that Enrico Andy Lorenzo Guerra, 34, and his 5-year-old daughter Anika were shot at his corner mart. He died at the scene, and his daughter was taken to the Princestown Health Facility, where she later succumbed to her injuries. We will have more on this developing story as information comes to hand. Well, that was your update to 8 o'clock. Look out for news in full at 12 noon.
Alrighty, it is 4.5 minutes after the hour of 8 o'clock on this 21st day of August. Let's welcome Dennise Demming. Good morning, Dennise. How you doing?
Good morning, and I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me with Karen Rose. Good morning. This is Power Conversation. Join me on a Monday and a Wednesday from 8 a.m. as we dig deeper into issues that are trending in our country. Our guest this morning, Karen Rose, teaches persons how to build their digital presence and monetize their platforms. He focuses on digital marketing, e-commerce, and he also hosts podcasts and does a lot of writing. So this is a very powerful person. Just before Karen comes on, please reach out to us on the chat or call us on 222-TALK. That's 222-8255. If you're in the US or in Canada, it's toll-free 866-525-1099. That's 866-525-1099. Or you can do WhatsApp, 868-318-1021. And of course, we've got the Power 102 digital app. So there are a range of things you can do if you just want to make a comment, if you want to ask a question, if you want to make a suggestion. So having said all of that, Karen, welcome this morning, and tell us, who's Karen Ross?
Thank you for having me, Dennise. Always a pleasure anytime we get a chance to have a conversation. So, who is Karen Rose? Karen Rose is a digital strategist that likes to work with Caribbean business owners across the entire region and diaspora, really helping them to, be self-sustainable and participate in that global economy. I am a student of life. I am a student first before anything, and I've started to really embrace the role of, being a teacher. Being able to come to the Caribbean with, everything that I've come with from Canada. And just being able to be in this position where I can share my knowledge and help others navigate this digital space that I find so interesting has really become, a focus of mine. So that's just a little bit about me.
Yes, thank you very much, Karen. And you've just told us a little about you, and you mentioned Canada.
Yeah.
Did you live in Canada?
Yeah, so I mean, everybody hears the accent. They always want to know, where is this freshwater Yankee from? And yeah, so I'm a born Trini. So we left when I was a couple months old, and I lived in Toronto, Canada, from a baby till about just before my 28th birthday. Before making the decision, you know what? I think it's time for a change.
So you thought it was time for a change and came back to Trinidad.
Yeah, so right around, I think one of the biggest misconceptions about, Canada in particular is that Canada has the smallest population of all the G7 countries, right? So when people look at the landmass, they think the populations rival that of the US, Europe, or China or India. And, Canada alone has less than 35 million people. It's very small in population size. And with that means, very limited opportunities in comparison to some of the other countries. So right around 28, a lot of my friends had moved out of Canada and were resettling in Europe, who was, becoming flight attendants, working on cruise ships, living in Asia, going over to South America. A lot of my friends had moved. And right around when I was deciding to move to Trinidad, I had about 10 of my friends from Toronto all moved to Trinidad right around the same time as well. Got jobs working at Maple Leaf Academy teaching, and then other jobs are around the country. So I didn't come here alone, but I was able to do it because I'm a dual citizen. And like I said, right around when all of my friends were starting to move or starting to think about where can they find their place in the world? We were going to school, getting our education, but they couldn't break into the job market. People just started to kind of, shift out of Canada. And I thought right around that same time, it was a good opportunity and time for me to make that shift as well.
Okay, so you made that shift. How long have you been here?
It is 10 years now. I had 10 years.
And how has that 10 years been?
It's honestly, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm saying that you've been here for the last 10 years. And I would say it's not been our best 10 years. It's a very challenging 10 years. So I don't want to, to influence your thinking on it. Sure. But for 10 years, you've been here. Tell me, how has that been?
It has been the greatest decision I've ever made. And I know it sounds weird when I tell people that, but being able to come here, and like I said, when I left, I was really trying to figure out, who I am and what I wanted to do with my life. And I moved here. It might not have been the best 10 years, but I moved here at the perfect time because that's when the technological shift had started to happen in Trinidad. Like when I moved here, I remember waking up the next morning and I got the Wi-Fi from my aunt and I'm signed in. I'm trying to watch some Netflix and Netflix is buffering. And I'm a tech guy. So when I see Netflix buffering, I'm like, wait a minute, Netflix could work on almost any speed. What's going on here? And when I ran a speed test, we were at like 1 kilobit per second. It was barely high speed. It was just above dial-up. And this is, coming into 2014. And I was like, listen, if the internet is this slow, I'm getting on a plane tomorrow and I'm going back to Canada. But then just doing some homework, I realized that, my aunt, they never really knew that there were there were some faster options available at the time. So when I had moved, companies were now starting to get into things like high-speed internet, 4G LTE did not roll out as yet, but because I came right on the cusp of these things rolling out, a lot of my skill sets, I used to work at Apple back in Canada. I used to also work at a company called TELUS and Rogers Communications that were in the smartphone industry. So right around when the technology started to kind of move the needle in Trinidad, my skill sets came at the right time because I started to realize that there weren't many people that were educating about technology. And back at Apple and TELUS, that was the main thing that I was doing. As much as you're selling technology, we used to have workshops, we used to have classes. We had to teach people how to utilize the technology and sensitize the public to the technology that we were selling. So when you think about, that's what I was doing and coming here right around that 2014 mark, and there wasn't really any places in Trinidad that were teaching technology. I'm going into the telco companies here and I'm just listening to the conversations that the reps are having with consumers, and they're just downright making things up or lying to the customers for sales. And I mean, a lot of that is still prevalent even today. And because of that, I realized, well, where do people go to learn about technology in Trinidad? Because back in Canada, there are so many places to go. You could walk into a Best Buy and you had the Geek Squad. There were classes happening in Best Buy. You go into Apple, you're teaching you how to do smartphone photography, how to build applications, how to do mobile banking, they're just teaching you a whole long list of stuff in so many different places. That doesn't happen here in Trinidad, even to this day. So I took that as an opportunity to start building my brand at the beginning. At that time was Droid Island, and teaching people how to utilize technology. And honestly, like I said, it was just a perfect timing because since I started my business in 2015, it's never stopped for me. It's been on go ever since.
Lovely. And you just triggered me with something because you talked about going on the internet and it being slow. I don't think that has changed. And I'm going to call out my internet provider who gives me trouble every day. So I don't think it has changed. And then when I check to see the speed, oftentimes the speed is, well, I don't know I don't know the language. Yeah. It's 28 upload and 5 download. So I'll move away from my trigger. That question. Has it changed?
Has the speed changed? Has the tech changed?
Yes.
I absolutely. Like, I mean, when I touched down, it was green dot, and green dot was murder. So over the years, the speeds have definitely got a lot better. Like we are, you can get up to like 500 megabits per second, depending on the carrier that you are with. You can get that. But I think one of the biggest challenges that we have in the Caribbean is that a lot of the places that people occupy are in mountainous ranges, and that affects our connectivity in a very big way. So depending on where you live in Trinidad, you're either going to get really good service or you're going to get really terrible service. And that's one of the biggest unfortunate parts, because the internet and technology is that underlying factor that's going to bring about opportunities for everybody. When you don't have access to internet or good internet, it really handicaps you. So again, depending on where you're living, if you don't have good internet, it causes a world of problems when it comes to trying to, I guess what we're going to be diving into today, it's going to cause a lot of problems to really build any business or upscale yourself if you don't have access to internet.
Okay, so Karen, you've just brought me down. You almost said to me, okay, Dennise, just chill a little now, depending on where you live.
Switch. That's really what you should be doing. Really what you should be doing is switching. Somebody is going to be, and you know what? I've realized that no two providers are good in the same area. One is really good. So like, for example, my current cell phone provider, terrible where I live. That just doesn't work. So if I'm not on Wi-Fi, nothing works. But if I were to switch networks, the other network works perfectly fine in my area. So there are no two providers work amazing in any one area. And what everybody has to do is, if one person's giving you terrible service, then you got to go and figure out who's that other person that works well in this particular area.
Okay. Well, I will be doing that. But that's not what we came here to talk about this morning. But thank you very much, Karen. I'm
No
going to
problem.
be switching to another provider.
Yeah.
Lovely conversation. There's something that I've read about you that, I mean, I just don't understand. You say that you're living a digital nomad lifestyle. What is that?
The digital nomad lifestyle. Oh boy. So you see how right now you have more and more people talking about work from home, being able to do your job, but do it from the comfort of your home. A digital nomad does not work from home. They work from anywhere. And that's a major difference, right? When you're working from home, the company you work for, they can come and set up shop in your home place, but you are bunkered down or hunkered down inside your home and working from there. When you are a digital nomad, you have either built a business or work for a company or have learned the necessary skill sets to freelance to be able to pick up your laptop and work from the beach, work in a different country. As long as you have an internet connection, you could execute your role. And being a digital nomad comes with some really interesting freedoms that I think have allowed people to find a lot more success today. You have location freedom, so you're no longer, tied down to any one country. As long as you have an internet connection, you could work from any country where you are able to stay for any period of time. You then also have time freedom. You're not punching the clock as a digital nomad. Chances are the role that you do, the tasks that you do, or everything that you do is really task-based. So you're not punching a clock at a particular time. Or if you do have a job, you tend to find a job that, can work in a time zone that's going to make the most sense for you, that you can commit to. So that's another thing. But then it's also more accessible to get financial freedom. And the reason I say that is because a digital nomad can practice something called, it's a term that's relatively new that many people really haven't, digested as yet. And it's called geo arbitrage. What geo arbitrage is being able to earn a higher currency, but then finding a country that has a lower cost of living that you can base yourself in. So it's easier to get financial freedom as a digital nomad because when people are complaining about high costs of living, chances are they're living in a country, they're earning that currency and they're living in that country, so their dollar is not going as far. A digital nomad now can say, all right, cool, I'm getting paid in US dollars or pounds. Why don't I live in a country like Colombia or somewhere in South America or somewhere in Asia where the cost of living is so much cheaper that the power of my dollar goes a lot further. And now I'm able to find places to rent from as low as $30 US a month if I want to get an apartment somewhere in one of these countries. And food, there are places where food costs in the cents. So now I don't need to earn as much money and all of my bills are paid and I can save my money. And again, I'm not stressed about my bills. So digital nomads really get to experience those three freedoms. And the best part is that you get to choose where you do it.
So, Mr. Digital Nomad, where are you going?
Good question. Very good question. So I knew coming down to the end of 2023, I knew that 2024 would be my last year in Trinidad. The only thing I did not know was where I was going to go. So I had spent some time in Medellin, Colombia. I absolutely love it over there. The cost of living is good. The culture is good. Food is good. The prices of everything for your household expenses very good. So that was on my mind. But then when I started to look at where other digital nomads are going, what are the countries that are really doubling down on digital nomads? I started to see countries like Portugal, Bali, Indonesia, Singapore, and then I got over looking at Japan and Thailand. And when I started to do my homework on Indonesia and Thailand and Singapore and Japan, Thailand made the most sense for me in terms of because they just released a new visa called the Destination Thailand visa, which is dubbed as the Digital Nomad visa. It's a 5-year visa that comes with a wide range of benefits. The cost of living is astronomically amazing in Thailand. And then it also gives you, because Thailand is so big and diverse, depending on what type of lifestyle you want. If you want the big city lifestyle, if you want the rural rice field lifestyle, if you want the beach lifestyle, there is something for everybody. And then it's also a hub, like what Miami is to us on this side of the world, that's what Bangkok, Thailand is for Asia. And it's easy to navigate all of the Asias and some parts of Europe for almost next to nothing. So it checked off a lot of the things that I'm looking for. I'm 37 right now, and Thailand just checked off so many boxes for me that I ultimately decided that my next destination is going to be Thailand.
You said it is astronomical, the cost of living. What do you mean by that? Because my interpretation of astronomical is that it is extremely expensive. It's high up in the air.
Oh,
so
sorry.
You had to go for that.
Sorry. Okay, let me change it. The cost of living is extremely low. Like, it's really, really low, right? And because, like I said, Thailand is so big and so diverse, you could live on the extreme cheap end. Like, you can really get by on $1,000 to $1,500 US a month. $1,000 US is what the average salary is in Trinidad right now, $6,000, right? Or just under $7,000. Yeah. You could get by with all of your expenses paid, because when you're looking at housing, obviously your housing is going to be one of your most important cost factors. If you want an apartment, and it sounds crazy saying this, and a lot of people don't believe it until you are in contact with people that are living there and they're vetting it for you and they're validating it for you. But if you want to get an apartment, apartments start as low as $20 US a month for apartments. Now, when you're over there, you're like, well, I don't want to just go to an apartment, right? I want a little bit of luxury, because luxury living over there is extremely affordable. So condos in Thailand start, the cheapest I've seen with my own eyes is $190 US a month. And that's what, I don't even think that's 1,500 TT dollars. And you're living in a 5-star luxury condo with pools, game room, theater rooms, access to all the amenities, all included within that rent. And then you're living in the heart of Bangkok. And if you decided you don't want to live in the big city and you wanted to go out to any one of the other cities outside of like the top tourist destinations like Phuket and Pattaya, you can get places even cheaper than that, luxury living even cheaper than that. So when you're looking at your housing costs being that affordable, then you look at, okay, well, what are things like your grocery bills? I've looked at about 40 people that have migrated. And then again, I'm looking at people that are online creating content, but then I also know people that have made the jump. Either they're living there now or they just moved back to a different part, and I've connected with them on platforms like LinkedIn. And when people are telling you that their entire monthly grocery bills are 100 US to 200 US max, if it's 2 and 3 people living with them, because they might have a spouse, they might have a dependent, and they're spending 200 to 300 US a month on groceries. And then because the food culture is so big in Thailand, where a lot of people don't cook because there's food everywhere, you're getting meals for cents. Coming from Canada, I've never experienced a time in my life where I went with $1 anywhere and got an entire meal. It's never happened for me in my lifetime. And the fact that those are things that are happening right now in Asia, again, it just checks off so much of the boxes, because now with a lower cost of living, I'm able to now redirect those same funds that I'm making right now and reinvest it back into my business, but now also really build up my savings in the process.
So you've just excited me and almost made me say, well, maybe I could go and spend some time in Thailand. Now here's a joke about Thailand. I described it as Thailand because I did English. I'm competent at that.
Yeah.
Someone says to me, no, it's Thailand. I said, but it's TH. But what you're talking about sounds so exciting, that the cost of living is so much lower, that the cost of rental of an apartment is so much lower. Have you any idea what Thailand did to be able to have such a reasonable, almost unanticipated cost of living that is so low? What did they do?
and these are the questions that I hope to answer for myself when I go over there. I don't know what they've done, but Asia on the whole is a whole lot cheaper than the Western world. But then even South America, a lot of the countries in South America are way more affordable. And if when you get a chance, just jump on Google and type in reverse migration. Reverse migration is people deciding to leave first world countries like the US, Canada, and the UK. And 2023 has the record highest numbers of reverse migrants that have left the first world countries, and they're now settling in quote unquote the third world countries. So Central America, places like Mexico is getting a huge influx of people leaving the US and Canada and migrating to Mexico. Colombia is another big one. Peru is another big one. And then you have places like you have some places in Europe, like I said, Portugal, Cyprus, Malta's been a huge one, getting a big influx. And then almost all of the Asian countries in Southeast Asia are getting an influx of migrants because the costs of living in these places are far cheaper than in the US, the UK, and in Canada. So I hope to answer, give me 6 months. Let me get there so I can start to do my homework to see what are they doing. And I know when it comes to food, they eat what they grow. Everything that they're eating in Thailand, and same thing in Colombia as well. And that's one of the reasons why it's so much cheaper, is they're growing every single thing that they eat. So the food is way healthier because it's farm to table. They got it right from where they're growing it. I think that plays a big part in just that lowering of because we know that one of our biggest bills in Trinidad is our food import bill. So I'm guessing that their food import bill is probably on the lower side of the entire world because they're growing everything that they eat.
Lovely. All right. So you've done a very successful business in Trinidad and you're walking away from it. Explain that to me.
I love that you asked that question because nothing changes for me, just the location. That's the best part about being a digital nomad. My business has been 100% digital since 2020. So I've been traveling throughout the entire region and diaspora over the past 2.5 years. I get to do workshops, I get to do conferences, speaking gigs, you name it, across the region and diaspora. And in doing that, I have just structured my business that everything I can do can be done from my laptop. So even when I get booked to go to the Bahamas and go do a workshop over there, if I'm there for a couple of days, the other arms of my business are still running. Nothing changes. So that was one of the biggest reasons why I decided that, 2024 would be my last year in Trinidad, because my business is 100% digital. And you're telling me that I don't have to work harder than I already do, and I'm going to be able to keep probably 60% of my money that I would be spending in bills or just existing in Trinidad. I'm now just going to be able to keep that and reinvest those funds into my business and also into savings by simply moving to a different country. It made the most amount of sense for me to do that at this point in time. But yeah, my business still runs the same. I'm still working with all the businesses in the Caribbean that I do right now. Nothing changes.
Well, nothing changes in terms of the business, but here's a question, and it's a question that you may tell me, no, I'm not answering that.
Yeah.
How are you going to get paid?
You are talking to the master of getting paid. Listen. I think that has been one of the best things about coming from Canada to Trinidad, because when I came, nobody could answer that question. When I say nobody could answer that question, nobody could answer the question as to how do you do e-commerce? How do you get paid online? What are the tools, the platforms, the account? Nobody could answer that. And from when I started, I had a brick and mortar store for some time in 2017. But then because I started to do all these workshops and content creation, I got all these partnerships, I ended up closing the physical brick and mortar store down after 6 months and turned everything digital. And it forced me to network like crazy and meet all of the e-commerce players around the Caribbean, and just get the information because the information wasn't available online. And so in learning how to build my e-commerce business from back in 2017, and putting in all of the necessary tools, getting the necessary accounts, and then learning how to start getting clientele outside of the Caribbean region, I have learned how to get paid. So to answer your question directly, how am I getting paid? The majority of my, I think about 60 to 70% of the people that I work with are not in Trinidad. So they don't pay me in Trinidad. They pay either my PayPal account, and my PayPal deposits the funds to my Wise account or my Bank of America account. Or if they're in the US, they'll pay my Bank of America account directly. I keep as much money away from Trinidad systems as possible, and that's going to give me access to all of my money. Now, for the people that are in Trinidad that I do business with and pay me, they're still going to pay me in Trinidad. Now, that's where it gets sticky, because then you have to learn about how do you start to move money outside of Trinidad. Your credit cards, as we know, the banks have been cutting down on the U.S. allocations. RBC just cut down the U.S. allocation again last week to $5,000. So the U.S. allocations are getting slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. And to get my money outside of Trinidad is a combination of utilizing things like PayPal, utilizing things like Western Union, and also being able to do direct deposits into my bank account. So there's a couple of people that I have that I trust that is able to, if need be, and I need to do a direct deposit into my Bank of America account, but using TT dollars, I could send the money to some of my friends, or the ones that I trust, and they could go into Western Union and do a direct deposit from Western Union to my Bank of America account. So I'd have access to it. I could also transfer money to some of my friends, and then they can PayPal me the money, which would then go into my Wise Digital Bank or to my Bank of America account. So honestly, I'm glad you asked that, because this is a part of the number one reason why I decided I don't think I could live in Trinidad anymore, because we don't understand that we are financially trapped. In Trinidad and Tobago, we are financially trapped. And the reason I say that is because we have people right now, we know crime rate is ridiculously high. You have people that are selling their business, selling their assets, the money goes into the account, they migrate, and then they tell the bank, okay, I've now resettled in the US, wherever. I need you to send the money. And the bank is like, well, we don't have access to those funds. We could, at best, we could wire you $1,000 to, depending on the bank, $2,000 US a month. And you're like, but I have 500,000 TT in my account. That's going to take like 10 years to get my money. And they're like, well, that's what it is. So I have started to strategically plan how I'm going to reduce Trinidad customers, because if I can't use the money, like if I get paid in Trinidad money is only good in Trinidad. I've gone out the country and had no access to my money and be stranded. With the US allocation being what it is, we are capped on how much business we can do outside of Trinidad. So you have to start figuring out, how are you going to conduct your business? If you only do business in Trinidad and everything you do is Trinidad, then you're fine. But that's not the case for a lot of people. So for me, I've just been trying to figure out slowly but surely how to reduce my business in Trinidad, all right? Or how am I going to get people to pay me, because they're subjected to the US allocation limits as well. So it's easy for me to send them an invoice for $1,000 US, but if they don't have the available US allocation to pay me, then they can't pay me and I can't get paid. So that's something that's a work in progress, and I've really been focusing more on doing business outside of Trinidad. That way I don't run into the payment problems. But when I get paid in Trinidad, what I'm doing with the friends, PayPal, Western Union, those are the ways that I've been able to move money outside of Trinidad.
Amazing. And what you've just described and shared with us is so important. So what would you tell a young person who is beginning to run their digital business? Would you tell them, listen, try and focus on some people outside, or are we going to continue to lose talent because we don't have a system that is open enough for people to export the money and use the money outside? So what's your advice to a young person?
So my advice to not even just the young people, to everybody, because right now I have people that are in their 70s that are coming to me about this exact same problem. This problem knows no age boundaries, right? People are building business because it's Trinidad's a small market. There's a finite number of job opportunities, and a lot of these jobs don't pay well as well. So people are trying to figure out how they can start to earn additional income. So for anybody who is, trying to build a business or earn a side income, you want to stop focusing on what you can do in Trinidad. That's number one. There's a paradigm shift that has to happen. You are a part of the global market. And over the past couple of months, I have been educating people on digital skills. And some of those digital skills, there's reports that are coming out of what are these skill sets in business, data science, technology, you name it, that are in demand globally. And if you can start to learn what are the skill sets that are in demand globally, what is going to get you a job working for a company outside of Trinidad? What is going to give you a skill set where it's going to allow you to get clientele outside of Trinidad, right? You can start to participate in the global economy and the global workforce. That way, when somebody pays you, it's easy for you to open up a digital bank or open up a bank in another country. We have those facilities available to us. But when you open those things up, do you have a job or a skill set that's going to be able to generate income into those accounts? Now, Trinidad still benefits because if you're still living here, just like the rest of the world that's been opening up their borders to digital nomads, the rest of the world has realized, hey, if we can get people who are coming with their own clientele or their own jobs remotely, and we get them to base themselves here, they're going to be spending all of their money here. So you can still live in Trinidad, but get jobs outside. And then even when you're banking, even when you're getting paid to a bank or an institution outside of Trinidad, you're still living here. So you're still going to be spending your money here. But now you don't have that cap on your money like you would if you were bringing the money in. I'll give you an example. There's a guy who is a sales manager for a tech company who made a huge rant the other day on TikTok that's been going viral. And it's because he got this job. The job is, it's out of LATAM. So they're paying him in US dollars. But what he did was he opened up a local US account and he brought the money in. The money went into his local US account. So he has the money there. He has the US. And his thinking was he would just be able to go into the bank and get the money because it's his money. So when he went into the bank and he was like, hey, I'm here to make a withdrawal. I need $1,500. The first question they ask is, well, what do you want $1,500 US dollars for? And he's like, well, mind your business. I don't need to tell you why I need $1,500. Just give me my money. It's my money in my account. Worse off, it's in my US account. Just give me my money. So they're like, well, we don't have it to give you. So he's like, well, how could you tell me you don't have my own money to give me? And they're like, well, we don't have US currency to give you. So he was perplexed why he was unable to get the money. But again, people don't understand the foreign exchange shortage and the depths of it until they're going through it themselves. So he has now brought in he generated his own US currency, and he has no access to the money unless he sells the US to the bank and convert it for a garbage rate and just take the TT, which he did not want to do. But again, it's not until you're going through it do you realize just how bad of a problem we are in Trinidad when it comes to the foreign exchange problem.
And our conversation was on digitization, but the foreign exchange issue is so important. I know people who have sold their houses in Trinidad, and they've gone abroad, making an assumption that I've sold my house, therefore I can afford to live abroad because I can get the money. And they are struggling because they sold the money is in the bank, and they're abroad, and they can do nothing. Now, that something is absolutely wrong with that. And there's a digital connection from that as far as I'm concerned. Because when you go to open a bank account in this country, it takes you, I don't know. But if you go abroad, you can open a bank account in 20 minutes. So the foreign exchange issue is absolutely critical. How do we begin to have people speak out about that so that we begin to change that? What are your suggestions?
Well, on a day-to-day basis, right? I think this has served me really, really well. Being able to come to the Caribbean and do well Caribbean-wide is that I've never looked to anybody to help me. I've just figured things out. So what I will always tell people first is you need to take front. You need to start taking accountability. You need to start learning in-demand skills, learning how to open up accounts outside of the country, because there are many people that I know, all of the people that I'm really good with, people are not struggling. They've just learned over the years how to build their business, how to build their brand, and get paid and keep the money outside. So they're doing well. You can do that. It's available for anybody to do, but you have to be the one to do that, right? That's the first piece of advice I would tell anybody. Don't worry about nobody else. Start securing your own house. Learn the skills, open up the accounts outside of, you could walk into a Bank of America and open up a foreign citizen account. You can do that. You can open up a Wise account. If you Google Karen Rose Wise, I have a whole document and videos of opening up the Wise digital bank account, and I use that every single day. So you can do a lot of things right from here. The second problem, outside of you securing your own self, as the Minister of Finance has said, they ain't riot yet. So until people truly understand the depths of how bad the foreign exchange problem is, because like I've said, I have traveled and I have been stranded without my money. I have money, but I had no access to the money because I've hit my US allocation limit. And when I'm asking the bank, hey, I have money, I need at least a temporary credit increase from my US allocation as I'm stranded, the bank's response was, well, that's no problem. Come into the branch, fill out this paperwork. It's going to take a month to do the increase and you'll be good to go. I'm like, no. You've misunderstood me. I am not in Trinidad. I am outside. You have all of my money. I need a US allocation increase on my credit card to be able to eat, to buy a burger, something. And they're telling you, well, we can't help you. So it's not until people are starting to travel and they hit the US allocation, it's not until people are starting to conduct business, because a lot of people in Trinidad have never left Trinidad. So it's not affecting them. A lot of people in Trinidad don't have a business, so it's not affecting them. So they don't understand the depths of the problem because they haven't had those challenges yet. But for those of us that have the challenges, we understand it's an absolute nightmare, and it's reason to reconsider living in Trinidad.
It is, Karen. I mean, you're explaining some stories that I have experienced. Recently, we were abroad and we wanted to take some friends out to dinner. We could not. So we then had to apologize to them and say, can you all pay for dinner tonight? I mean, the only thing I didn't do was cry.
Embarrassing.
Totally embarrassing. And it's not because I don't have the money. It is because the credit card has a daily limit. And then it transfers from a daily limit into a monthly limit. And once you hit that limit, you can't spend another cent. Karen. All right, so let's go back to Thailand. What are the tax implications of you being in Thailand? Do you know what their tax requirements are and so on?
Yeah, so depending on the country that you are coming from, you pay taxes in your home country, coming there as a digital nomad. And this is one of the reasons why more countries around the world are creating digital nomad visas, because it circumvents a lot of headaches. One of the big ones is that a digital nomad cannot work for a local company. So that protects the jobs for the local citizens, right? Because, I mean, the age-old conversation is, immigrants are coming and they're taking up all the jobs. Well, guess what? Digital nomads are not allowed to work in that country, so they're not going to pay the taxes in that country. They would pay the taxes in the home country where their business is registered in, or if they're working for a company and that company's abroad, they're paying their taxes in their home country. So that's the main thing. There are some countries where there is a potential double taxation, Luckily for us, we're not one of them for Thailand.
All right. So your taxation is going to be in Trinidad.
Correct.
Based on, okay, so however that works. Well,
Yeah.
good luck with that. Absolutely. Good luck with that. But Karen, you've raised a number of points that I think are so interesting. And this issue of the digital nomad visa.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little about that? Because I have someone on the post saying, I want to move to Thailand. Let me know how.
Yeah, you know what? Again, one of the main reason why I even shared I was going to be moving to Thailand was because usually I'm one of those people where I just do things and then you just learn about it. And you're like, wait a minute, when did he do that? But because I know the situation in Trinidad and Tobago, people are looking for options, whatever those options are, right? People are looking for options because the current version of Trinidad is not working for most people. So in sharing about the digital nomad visa, countries around the world have figured out, like I said earlier, that, hey, we need to be able to grow our GDP. We need cash injections into the economy. And one of the easiest ways to do that is for countries that have that lower cost of living that are lower than the US, Canada, and the UK, we could open up a visa that targets digital nomads where they're coming here. They're not allowed to work for local companies. They can freelance for people outside of the country. They can work for companies outside of the country. And you coming here and now allows you to keep more of your money because it's a lower cost of living. So you're going to keep more of the exact same salary that you're earning right now in your current company. And you live in a lower cost environment. You pay taxes in your home country, and you enjoy the benefits of living in a society that could be potentially more developed. I don't know if people have ever seen what's happening in Asia. It's a heck of a lot more developed than the entire Caribbean region. So you're going to be living in a more advanced, free-flowing society that has a lower cost of living. So there's a lot more benefits to you just being able to pick up yourself and go move over there. Now, I don't want people to think that all I'm doing is promoting the brain drain. I think one of the biggest problems that we have right here in Trinidad and Tobago is there is a lack of global perspectives in Trinidad and Tobago. And a lot of the conversations, and you see people talking, it's because they've never left Trinidad. So they don't know how a civil society works. When you hear people say things like, oh, there's crime everywhere. Yeah, there's crime everywhere, not to the level of what we are experiencing here. No, right? There's crime in Toronto. Toronto's recorded their 55th murder for the year, and that's their highest in over 10 years. So yes, there's crime in Toronto. It's not to the level of this. So what we need to start advocating for as well is people need to start not just traveling for vacation and staying on a resort. People need to go and live outside of the Caribbean. Go live, I don't care where you live. Go live somewhere else for a year, 2 years. And then when you come back, you're going to have way more experience. You're going to understand how a lot of these countries and societies work. So you can be a way more productive citizen in Trinidad and Tobago with a better mindset and just a better thought process so you can be more productive living here.
Yeah, that's a great idea. But I think we can, if our leaders understood the context of other societies a little better, then they would change our context, because everybody can't travel. But
Correct.
Somebody needs to lead it. Somebody needs to show them what is the context and what can we do differently. Karen, we have just about another 10 minutes or so.
Yeah.
And here's a question I want to ask you. What role do you think technology and digital entrepreneurship can play in addressing some of the challenges we face as a nation?
Oh, man, I think it's everything. People don't understand yet here that when you say things like, there's a lack of jobs, there's a lack of opportunity in Trinidad, you don't need Trinidad to give you opportunities. I did not need Trinidad to do anything that I do. I don't have to do anything in Trinidad. But when you understand the digital world that we are living in now, the skill sets that you learn do not have to come from any school right here in Trinidad and Tobago. Every skill set that I've acquired over the years, from web development to search engine optimization to prompt engineering, all the skill sets that I have, I've learned through online courses and self-paced learning. I've never gone to school in Trinidad. And all of the skills that I've acquired, I've acquired through online courses. So you can learn in-demand skills through online courses, and none of those institutions are even based in the Caribbean. When you learn these courses, and then you understand, hey, how do I start to apply for jobs? How do I leverage platforms like LinkedIn, where I can now start to connect with companies outside of the region, apply for jobs outside of the region? When you start learning, how do I work with some of the freelancing platforms like a Fiverr, a freelancer.com, or how can I build my own brand and start to attract clientele or opportunities from around the world? You start to realize I don't have there's no shortage of opportunities, right? I don't look around Trinidad and I'm like, I need an opportunity in Trinidad. No, I'm constantly learning, how do I upskill and how do I attract people from different parts of the world so my business can participate in different economies. So if Trinidad goes down the drain economy-wise, my money's not tied to Trinidad, right? Obviously, the society living in, the crime rate might go higher, and my personal safety might be impacted. But my business, my job, how I earn, nothing changes because I'm still earning outside of Trinidad. These are the things that when people start to understand and get that paradigm shift, then you're not looking around Trinidad saying, oh God, Trinidad has no opportunities. Look, all of these jobs are low paying. You don't need Trinidad to earn money. And I'll repeat that. You do not need Trinidad to earn money. You don't even need Trinidad for opportunities. And when you have that paradigm shift, there is a level of freedom that you get because now you're not worried about what's happening in the local market. You're not worried about the lack of opportunity or the low paying jobs because you understand that I can get a job working for a company abroad, or I can get clients working for people around the world, or I can jump on any of the freelancing platforms and start to ply my trade on those platforms and earn money. The digital world and technology has leveled the playing field for everybody. So regardless of your background, your education, your status, where you are, if you're somebody where you really don't have no money, I started building my business with no money. But as long as you have a phone and an internet connection, I don't care if you're teeth in the internet connection. I don't care if you're sitting down in a coffee shop every single day and using free Wi-Fi. As long as you have a phone and access to Wi-Fi, there is a skill that you could learn and you could start to generate your own income with just your phone and a internet connection.
Do you apply that? We have an aging population. Do you apply that to our population when more than 40% of the population is over 65?
Well, it's interesting because when, for example, working at Apple, we used to have workshops that were for seniors hours, right? So seniors hours was an hour and a half before the mall used to open. So they would come in at 8:30. The mall would open at 10. And we always had workshops for them. And the senior citizens were the most packed classes because they want to learn. They have the time, they want to learn. But the facilities are there for them to come in and learn. Where are the facilities here that are gonna take the time to teach people, our older generation, some of these new skills that they can now leverage and go ahead and use? We really don't have that here. But also what's encouraging for me is people in Trinidad and also other Caribbean islands, they love to let me know their age when they reach out to me, right? So I'll have somebody saying, hey, I'm looking to, I had a lady who was doing hand soaps, right? Doing soap. She had eczema, different skin conditions, and she was making soaps for that, right? And I remember when she reached out, she's like, she has this soap making business and she wants to start to export the soaps into the US and Canadian markets. She's like, she listens to all of my content. She reads the blogs. She follows me on TikTok. I'm like, TikTok? She's like, yes, I in my 70s and I follow you on TikTok. So I'm consuming your content all the time. So they love to let me know their age. And we have a lot of people that are in their 70s and their 80s and they're willing to learn. But again, How many Karen Roses do we have available teaching people digital skills? How many institutions are teaching people digital skills? We really don't have a lot. And I believe that if you start to make provisions and you really focus on bringing in some of the older generation to come in to upskill them. Matter of fact, I shared, and I'll share it to you offline afterwards, but the Singaporean president or prime minister, sorry, he had a video that I was watching today where he was talking about upskilling the older generation, giving them, anybody that loses their jobs, giving them a stipend for 6 months. And they laid out a plan as to how they're going to upskill them, give them career coaching, and do job matching for them, not just in Singapore, but outside of the country as well. These are the things that we have to start doing if we want to upskill the non-tech savvy generation and the older generation.
Karen, you've only been here for 10 years. But if you were the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, what would be one key area you'd focus on to bring about the transformational change that we need?
I would be reaching out to platforms like Facebook, Google, Amazon, any one of the tech giants. And the first conversation I'm having is, what can we do? What can we do in terms of upskilling our people? Is there courses that we can bring in? Is there a warehouse that we can drop somewhere where we can start to generate jobs for Amazon? Because I'm sure Amazon would love a warehouse. We've seen President Irfan Ali in Guyana 2 weeks ago have a whole meeting with Elon Musk to talk about what can Tesla do with Guyana. These are the conversations I'd want to be having, because the technology skills are the future. You as the Prime Minister have the ability to start navigating some of the conversations with the tech giants. We also have some amazing people from Trinidad and Tobago in some huge positions in some of the leading companies. The head of diversity for Facebook is a Trini. We have Trinis in some key places. I would start trying to figure out how can we start to leverage our diaspora that is in a lot of these key roles in companies around the world. How do we start to leverage those relationships so that we can upskill our nation and see what types of partnerships that we can create? Because if more people become digitally savvy, they can start to generate their own income and be less reliant on the local jobs and the local economy to earn. And I think that's a big, big win for everybody here, because now you have that freedom and you're not worried about, there's no jobs in Trinidad or the jobs are low paying. If we can upskill our nation and you as the Prime Minister have the ability to navigate those conversations, that's my first order of business.
Absolutely wonderful. I'll tape that and send it to the Prime Minister. And my final question to you, Karen, is looking ahead, where do you see yourself and your career in the next 5 years, especially as you're going to be a digital nomad? Not going to be, you are a digital nomad. So where do you see yourself and your career in the next 5 years?
Yeah, a very, very interesting question, because it's been on my mind a lot. And I think as a digital nomad, I think one of the new things that I want to tap into is doing a 5-year review of where my life is at. So I could do 5 years in Thailand. At the end of the 5 years, I could now say, hey, you know what? Let me go live in Colombia, or let me go live in Cyprus. Being able to now go to different places around the world every couple of years and soak up all of the knowledge, because my business is still in the Caribbean and diaspora. So where I see my business growing is being able to take all of those things happening in those countries that I'm living and being able to now synthesize that knowledge like I do right now, because a lot of my knowledge is coming from Canada, but being able to learn from different parts of the world, take all of those things and synthesize that back into the Caribbean region to help people upskill and just start to really build that human capacity, that human skill sets here in the Caribbean. So for me, every couple of years, I think I see myself living in a different country and just taking all of that information and being able to now pour that back into the Caribbean region and grow the Digipreneur company.
That is absolutely wonderful. And as we bring the show to an end, there are some things that I have taken away from this. One, upskill upskill. Imagine that. My generation, we can still upskill and make a contribution. Reverse migration. That's a concept I had not had in my head, but it's a wonderful concept of reverse migration. We don't all have to go to the developed world. There are so many developing countries that can offer us tremendous opportunities. The digital nomad visa. I think that is absolutely fantastic. I may be thinking of it. And then the final one that, that I am thinking of is what you've just said, that you will continue to focus on the Caribbean and see how you can help. So, Karen, what would you like people to just take away from this hour that we've been chatting?
The biggest takeaway is that you don't need to rely on anybody to give you the opportunity. As long as you are somebody that is willing to take front and take accountability for your own choices and your own career path, the information to learn new skills, you can do that on your own. The ability to earn your own income or create your own revenue streams for yourself, all of that is available to us right from Trinidad and Tobago. I was able to come here and within a short time frame of 10 years, do all of those things for myself without the help of anybody locally. You can do that too. And that is something I want to implore and empower everybody here listening to be able to do that for themselves.
Thank you ever so much, Karen Rose. It's been absolutely wonderful chatting with you. And I look forward to seeing you. Enjoy Thailand. And please remember that Trinidad needs your support. And please remember that as a digital nomad, you need to open up that area for other digital nomads to join you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, Dennise.
Thank you. And that brings us to the end of our conversation, Power Conversation. And I hand over back to Power 102. I'm Dennise Demming. See you next Monday at 8.